Do 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 do. All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I hope you had a great holiday weekend. I was off this weekend because it was holiday, spending time with friends and fam, but we are back for a big news. We have breaking news tonight that just happened like literally a couple of minutes ago. It's crazy to keep it up with this news cycle. But we have so much to get into tonight. And I also have two special guests that are going to join me later in the show to come on and talk about this Graham Platner situation. And that is Mel, who you guys know on X as Crazy or Village Crazy Lady. And of course, my comrade, Nick Cruz. They will both be joining me later on tonight in the show, and we'll get into all of that. But first and foremost, ladies and gents, let's go ahead and give some shout outs to people in the chat. And shout out to everybody who is watching on YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. I hope Rumble's up and running. I think it is. All right. What is going on? JR says vindication for those of us who saw Platner for what he was long ago. Interesting. Shout out to Queen. Does the woman have evidence? Seems crazy that now she decides to and not before the primary. We're going to get into all of this tonight, ladies and gents. Greetings, Ginger. He must have received some serious threats. There are plenty of people in office who did far worse, according to the E-Files. Shout out to Rich. Platner is a man who challenges the ruling class. Everyone who backs the 2021 Jenny Rassicot story allegation is succumbing to controlled oppression. Interesting. A lot of people are split on this, by the way. Shout out to Sue, says, heard an interview with David Sirota, who said one of the main issues is publicly funded elections as Vance is pushing for Citizens United 2.0. New York has a form of PFE, apparently, that helped the DSA reps. That is really interesting. Greetings, James. Hi, Sabby. You do great work, and I enjoy watching your show. James, Anchorage, Alaska. What's up, James? Shout out to Oasis. I've been thinking about the word communism lately, and I don't think it's a thing. I think the government made that word up to discourage community. Interesting. Shout out to P. Fry Dog. I didn't realize that he worked as a hired mercenary for the U.S. government. Yeah, he actually did talk about that after that was leaked on Breaking Points. I believe it was Ryan and Crystal were talking to him about that. Yeah, we'll get into it tonight, folks. We'll get into it. Greetings, E. Kayan says, I just want to point out that Politico has stated undying support for Israel. Who is this victim exactly? Has there been an investigation, a hearing? All accusations should be taken seriously. Greetings, your mother says, do not drop out, Graham. Shout out to Birkin, who says to Oasis, they can call it a piece of shit system if they want, as long as there are no corporate or Zionist structures involved and the people do the producing while the services return to the people. Nothing else is needed. Shout out to Blockbuster, says hi. Greetings, Cloudness says, salute Sabby and everyone in the building. B1 fam. Greetings, Skip. Folks need to do some independent investigation. Are the accusations credible with police reports at the time? Did Platner threaten her job, or does she even have that the ability? Are you looking at Massey too? Yeah, like I said, you guys, people are really split on this. There's people who feel as though he should drop out. There's people feeling that he shouldn't drop out. I'll get into it. He's already lost, I would say, most of the endorsements that he did receive since this new allegation has come forward. But it's so much to get into there, ladies and gents. Greetings to Randy, says, just finishing my veggie burger dinner with mushrooms, I think have gone bad. Oh no, love you, Sabby. Be back in a bit. Don't eat bad mushrooms. Don't do it. Shout out to Little Wisdom, says, Sabby, love all things considered. I like Sabby the best. And greetings, Mo. People don't hate America. They hate Trump. Interesting take there. And shout out to Charlie, says, it sure seemed like they could just find any woman out of the woodwork to make accusations at anyone who could be a threat to them. The exact same thing happened to Massey in his election too. And shout out to CBC Voter, says, happy Tuesday, Sabby Sabs and Eric T. Red. All right, ladies and gents, and hello to all of you. New York Varsity said the 11th hour women are so convenient, aren't they? Interesting. Like I said, people are split on this. I'm curious to hear what people have to say about it tonight on Call-In, because we will do Call-In tonight after the show. But yeah, there's a lot to get into. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I got 5 categories for you folks. We have the ultimate. Don't forget about those Sabinators. They are not later gators. We also have the Sabsters, which are pretty cool as well. Everybody loves the Sabbies. That's the most popular group here, it seems to be. Thank you to them as well. And last but not least, we cannot forget about the members holding it down. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. We call them newbies. Let's give it up for Sarah Mabarak and Tony. Is Tony just Tony, or is Tony? Tony? Thank you. Thank you guys so much and welcome. Hey, all right. Let's go ahead and get into that thumbnail, ladies and gents. Like I said, we're going to start with breaking news because this just came through. But let me go ahead and show you the other stories that we're going to discuss tonight, of course. Big show, ladies and gents. Tonight, we are discussing, well, if you haven't heard by now, there is another Graham Platner allegation, and this is a donezo. He's going to drop out. It's just evident at this point in time, given all of the people that have withdrawn their endorsements. He's going to drop out. He has until July 13th to do that. I'll get into that story along with Nick and Mel, who have different opinions about this. Like I said, people are divided over this story, and many people are saying, should people have paid attention to the red flags all along, the other red flags prior to even that first New York Times article? So that's a lot of people are talking about that. We're also going to discuss, we got some breaking news here. The U.S. just striked Iran right now as Max Blumenthal is there. And I don't know. I'll ask Eric to check his Twitter account because Max tweets pretty frequently. And I was already going to cover what Max is discussing and showing what's happening in Iran because he has been attending the funeral processions. I was already going to talk about that. And then this news just broke that the U.S. is striking Iran pretty heavily right now. I don't know if Max has left Iran yet. I would imagine probably not, considering he was just videotaping and vlogging while he was in Iran and posting that on X. So I would imagine that he probably has not left Iran yet. But we're going to get into all of that. I'm also going to discuss Tyler Robinson hearing is underway, and you are not going to believe some of the things that they are pulling, some of the things that they're saying, ladies and gents. From what I've seen so far, there is absolutely no way that you can say 100% without a doubt that Tyler Robinson is the man in this video. But they are already decided. They've already decided they are going to make that connection, even if they have to make things up. We're going to get into all of that. Erica Kirk was there. So much to get into, ladies and gents. We're also going to discuss this missing teenager who is now no longer missing, and they are declaring that he is now dead. They believe that they have found his body. Nolan Wells, what happened to this young man? What happened to this young man that went to this trip to Horn Island with his friends, and they came back and he did not? We're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss Karoline Leavitt has a lot of people mad because she is pointing her finger at Gen Z, and she said that they are lazy. She said that they are lazy, and people were calling out her hypocrisy, right? So we're going to get into all of this tonight, ladies and gents. Again, when I think about the situation with the US, Iran, and Israel, I just don't see this ending anytime soon. I just feel like this is just going to be a back and forth thing. The US striking Iran, Israel striking Iran, and back and forth. Now, you can bet Iran is going to respond to these attacks. So I think we should get started with that breaking news. Tonight's theme is question everything. We're going to do that. We're going to question everything, ladies and gents. Some people were asking, did Sabs not have a Sunday show this week? No, I didn't. I took it off because of the holiday. So yeah, just letting you guys know, because I saw some people in the chat saying like, oh, I didn't see her Sunday. No, I took the Sunday off. I actually send that through my Substack newsletter. Like if I'm not going to be live, I will send a Substack article that says no live stream. And so people can get the heads up about that. Okay, ladies and gents, if you have not done so, do me a solid and smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Let's go ahead and dive into this breaking news here, ladies and gents. This is a big one. It appears that the U.S. has indeed decided to strike Iran again. Now, you have to remember that Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral procession has been going on for the past couple of days. Lots of people there. We're talking over 12 million reported, over 12 million people out in the street. And the U.S. is now striking Iran. Let's go ahead and get into this story right here. Shout out to Dropside News for this one. This is breaking news. U.S. Central Command says it has begun a series of strikes on Iran, saying the attacks are in response to Iranian strikes on 3 commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz, which it called a violation of the ceasefire. Iran said it manages the strait under the MOU, and any attempts to transit outside Iranian control are a violation of the signed agreement. So here we go again, ladies and gents, where we've shown this before. About a week or so ago, the U.S. has been trying to get around the actual approved route for the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran made it very clear in that MOU that if you do not follow the actual approved route, you will be seen as a threat and they will strike you. So that is what happened, right? So you got to think about it from their perspective. They do not know if that's a ship that's trying to target them. You know, like, why would you not follow the approved route? So the U.S. is doing this again. So because the U.S. did that again, apparently, according to this, Iran did strike. It goes on to say here, we'll go to Central Command. U.S. Central Command forces have begun launching a series of powerful strikes against Iran to impose heavy costs for targeting and attacking commercial shipping crewed by innocent civilians in an international waterway. The U.S. strikes are in response to Iranian attacks on 3 commercial vessels that were transiting the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's demonstrated aggression was unwarranted, dangerous, and a clear violation of the ceasefire. So similar things that we've seen before in the past, where the U.S. says that, this is them like violating the ceasefire, but they don't mention that they're not following the rules. And that is why Iran did strike these ships. Now, the U.S. is now raining heavy fire on Iran right now. We're going to go ahead and get into this clip here from Al Jazeera.
We're just going to go back to that breaking news story that the U.S. military has just confirmed that it's begun launching a series of powerful strikes on southern Iran. According to this statement from the U.S. military CENTCOM, they're saying that these strikes are to impose costs for targeting and attacking commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, because they're also saying that this is in response to Iranian attacks on 3 commercial vessels that were transiting the Strait of Hormuz. Both Saudi Arabia and Qatar have accused Iran of attacking their vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. And what we're now hearing from the U.S. military CENTCOM, they are now releasing the statement saying that they have begun a series of attacks on southern Iran. Let's bring in Tawhid Asadi, who's live for us in Tehran. Tawhid, what more do you know about these strikes now on Iran? What are they targeting?
Well, actually, officially speaking, at least from the military officials of the country, so far we don't have any confirmation regarding that. But it's still, we've got the state TV just saying that sounds of explosion have been heard at least in 2 locations. And according to the state TV, IRIB, 6 explosions have been heard in the island of Kesheev. And for your information, Kesheev is the largest island in the vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz, with a very geostrategic significance when it comes to Iran's control and authority over the Strait of Hormuz. Also, the state TV says that at least 7 explosions have been heard in the areas close to Sirik port. And then again, Sirik port is very important because of the very fact that it oversees the Strait of Hormuz. Again, another point, another strategic point from which Iran imposes its control and authority over the Strait of Hormuz. We know that starting from the time after the signing of Memorandum of Understanding, we have been witnessing limited sort of, I would say, confrontation and escalation in this highly, I would say, escalated situation at the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says from time to time they have opened, reopened, and closed the strait, but every time they're saying that the authority for the strait is for Iranians. Any transiting of ships and vessels and oil tankers through the trajectory of the strait should be coordinated with the Iranian side. And on that, today we've got this statement from Qatari side saying that an attack happened targeting LNG tanker of Qataris. Iranian side came out to respond, calling it a questionable acquisition, contrary to the principle of good neighborliness.
Tawhid, let's go over.
Let me just pause here because I do want to just show you. So once again, it's Kesheev Island. This is one of the ones that has been struck multiple times. So this one right here, again, of course, right in the Strait of Hormuz. That's where the U.S. decided to strike once again. Let's continue on here.
So stand by for us, Tawhid. We'll get back to you in just a minute. Mike, what are you hearing about these U.S. strikes on Iran? There was just a statement released by CENTCOM.
That is all we have at the moment, is a statement released by U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, saying that it's carried out a series of what it calls powerful strikes against Iranian targets. It says this follows the Iranian attack on 3 vessels crewed by civilians attempting to transit the Strait of Hormuz. So very clearly, CENTCOM now launched a new operation in this ongoing series of tit-for-tat strikes, as it would appear in recent days. CENTCOM is giving us no further information at the moment, apart from adding that it is deeply disturbed by these ongoing attacks by Iran and what they call the ongoing transgressions of the Memorandum of Understanding, which is supposed to govern the framework for negotiations between Iran and the U.S.
Now, the fact that, again, this is happening during the time when they're having the funeral processions for Ayatollah Khamenei, I see it as incredibly disrespectful. The U.S. choosing to send that ship through the Strait of Hormuz through a route that is not approved, which goes against the MOU. Again, they knew exactly what they were doing here. They knew that if they did that, that Iran would, strike that ship, and thus that would be a reason for them to start bombing Iran. I see this as incredibly disrespectful, considering the fact that, they are burying their former Ayatollah. And it makes me a little worried here as well, because right now there are Western journalists that are there. We'll get to the Max Blumenthal part here in just a second, but I do want to show you some of those strikes that did appear to go through. Let's go ahead and bring this one in here. This is from the Hormuz letter. Major U.S. airstrikes carried out on Shahid Haqqani port in Bandar Abbas. This is southern Iran. Let's go ahead and pull this one up. You can see all the smoke back there. And then we have another one here to show you as well, because so you can see all the red and the smoke there. So that's one of the areas that was hit. And then you can see the pictures here. Bandar Abbas, this is southern Iran, following the U.S. airstrikes. And as you can see, the reason why I really want you to see these pictures as well, look at how close the smoke and the flames are to all of these businesses right here on this street. So this is just, kind of reminds me of Newbury Street in Boston. Like, imagine if, there was an attack like right behind those buildings, Newbury Street in Boston. So you can see, again, businesses are right there. Here's another image where you can see as well, and looking from the ocean. And then there's another one here. Footage shows the moment the U.S. missile struck Shahid Haqqani port in Bandar Abbas. Shout out to the Cradle for this one here.
Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yep, right there. So like I said, near all those businesses, there was a strike there. Now, this is the part that's also really scary. For those who are not aware, Max Blumenthal is in Iran. He is there with a couple other Western journalists. I think Samani is also there. I think Jackson Hinkle might also be there. So Iran is allowing Western journalists to come there and report. So there are a number of them who are there right now, and they went there to cover the funeral procession for Ayatollah Khamenei. Max Blumenthal has been documenting his journey during this time. Now, this is not the first time that he's been there reporting in Iran, but the last time that he was there, there wasn't the Iran war. The last time he went there, there weren't these strikes being traded back and forth between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. And so this is a very concerning time. In fact, I want to bring in this video here where he was standing at the location where Ayatollah Khamenei was attacked.
I'm here at the compound of the late leader, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, which was bombed on February 28th by the U.S.-Israeli coalition at the start of Operation Epstein Fury, or what I guess you could call Operation Epic Fury. Benjamin Netanyahu convinced Donald Trump to do this strike in a meeting in the White House Situation Room where Netanyahu sat at the head of the table, and he promised Donald Trump that if they decapitated Iran's leadership, regime change would come in days. And what they found out was exactly the opposite. The United States was plunged into a failing war in which it suffered one of its worst military defeats, which will echo for a generation. Ali Khamenei was killed in this compound with members of his family, including his granddaughter, and also commanders of the IRGC, top advisors. And these were the men who had prepared for a war for decades that wound up defeating the most powerful empire in history.
So I just want to pause because I want you to see, this is where they struck and killed Ayatollah Khamenei. That's why there's these, it looks like pictures of him over here in the background. Looks like people made this more of like a memorial as well. I just want to point this out. Like, this is there are buildings here. You see this? You see how there are buildings there as well? So it's just, I want people to understand that they were willing to take out everyone in this area to get to one person. Oh, what happened there? There we go. Sorry.
And what they found out was exactly the opposite. The United States was plunged into a failing war in which it suffered one of its worst military defeats, which will echo for a generation. Ali Khamenei was killed in this compound with members of his family, including his granddaughter, and also commanders of the IRGC top advisors. And these were the men who had prepared for a war for decades that wound up defeating the most powerful empire in history.
So I am just going to check really quick to see, because Eric just messaged me and said the last time, that's the Gray Zone account, the last time that Max Blumenthal tweeted was 3 hours ago. Although because of the time zone difference, it could just be that he's asleep. So I'm going to check that after we show you this one here as well. He also visited Tehran Sharif University of Technology, where the U.S. bombed its AI center this April. The attack caused $100 million in damage to data units and was part of the broader assault on research centers. A physics professor told me the bombing aimed to shatter Iran's knowledge base and strip it of scientific independence. He said there's a full report coming soon there. I want to show you these pictures of that technology institute. So again, one thing people got to remember is that Iran has some of the smartest, most intelligent scientists in the world. You saw there's keyboards there. You can see there's people there as well. Let's check his account. I just want to double check and see something. All right. Yeah, he did a repost 3 hours ago. But because of the time difference, he could just be asleep. And then he was talking about Laura Loomer's propaganda there. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that to see when he tweets again. Another one here that he showed is inside the Iranian research university bombed by Iran. He's going to show you like the circuit boards as well. Check this out.
In my hand, I have a circuit board which was blown up in the U.S.-Israeli bombing of Sharif University, which is where I'm standing right now in the middle of Tehran. This was the AI facility of Sharif University. $100 million worth of GPU were destroyed in this attack, which was part of a wider attack on Iran's economy, its oil production base, and particularly its knowledge base. Why did the U.S. and Israel attack this building, and what kind of setback did you experience here at the university as a result?
Generally speaking, this spot was the heart and brain of Sharif University's processing and operations. In a project that the university has been running with the country's scientific department for a few years now, a large part of the AI industry, meaning the GPUs and racks needed for processing and the highly valuable infrastructure was located here. It was Sharif's technology hub. Practically, by hitting this spot, the university's most vital point is blocked from all technological and scientific activities, and it's brought to a standstill.
Yeah.
Our government said, they're just trying to free the Iranian people, women, life, freedom, and get rid of this tyrant, religious maniac, and everybody will be free. But then they start attacking universities and oil production facilities. Yes. How do you personally feel about this? And do you think this changed the mindset of Iranians who may not have supported the Islamic Republic?
Besides the US itself saying such a thing, unfortunately, many of these university students who are considered the elite and study here thought that a US attack would bring good things and open doors. But the point is, you see, when there's an attack, this is the kind of thing they target. The university's ICTC department, the heart, the center and brain of the university. where all university activities are probably going to be put on hold for a while, just as they were. I'm really curious to know, I talk to students here and there, but I want to know what they think now that a center like this, which was probably built with the people's own money since it was a state-run place, has been damaged. What's their take? How do they think the US is going to bring them freedom?
Yeah, he's talking about the ones who really believe that the US, bombing Iran was going to help things. We know from history that is not the case. That is definitely not the case. And so, yeah, universities being attacked there. There was another one here because, like I said, he did participate in the funeral procession. So he said here, the view on a bike to Azadi Square earlier this afternoon, hours after Khamenei's coffin had been removed from the square as mourners continued pouring in to participate in the ceremony. So I'm glad there were people there on the ground because a number of corporate media outlets tried to say that it wasn't real, that this was AI. So check it out. And notice, like, people, what I noticed from the videos is like, it seemed like people were willing to walk for miles to get to, the funeral procession. I talked to Professor Morandi on Sunday, and he was talking about how he left like with hours ahead of time, and he didn't get there in time for the prayer because it was just so many people. You'll see a bit of that in just a second because Max also met up with Professor Morandi as well. But you guys get the gist of it, like all the people willing to walk. And again, remember how hot it is in Iran right now, right? So they're getting into the hottest months. And you'll see here, I just visited the largest funeral in history where millions mourned Khamenei, the Iranian leader who was assassinated by U.S.-Israeli coalition, along with members of his family. I want to show you some of the pictures that Max has here of the crowd. This is why it's important to have independent media there. So they were able to show you, since Western media tried to lie and say it's not actually that many people there. There's one there. Here's another one. Looks like inside. He took pictures of families as well. Here's a family holding up a picture of Ayatollah Khamenei. And there he is there. You guys see the water coming down from the lines here? I think this is what Professor Morandi was talking about. When I spoke to him on Sunday, he said they had up this water system set up so that it would spray water to help kind of cool down the temperature. And I think this must be what he was talking about. I haven't seen that before, but that's actually, a smart idea to have that. And speaking of Professor Morandi, Max also walked with him. So again, this is when Professor Morandi said he was trying to get to the prayer, and you'll see how slow they're walking to give you an idea as how many people are around. But listen to what he says here about what's going to happen next, because here we are again tonight.
For any diplomacy with the United States at this point, even if the Democrats come back in, it just seems like they keep driving home the lesson again and again. I think kindness will be seen as a sign of weakness.
That's the problem with the United States. One is the Zionist influence. The second is this belief that somehow any goodwill gesture is a sign of weakness, and which is a miscalculation and a misunderstanding. But I'm not optimistic about the United States. Who knows what the future holds for the United States, and what will happen to the country in the distant future. Maybe you'll have a very different sort of leadership one day in a not so distant future, but I don't see anything on the horizon, anything to be optimistic about.
Do you see war on the horizon?
It's possible, yeah.
So I thought that part there was important when he said, do you see war on the horizon? And here we are again today, where the U.S. just struck Iran again, right? So I think Professor Morandi has the right idea here that he said, I don't trust that the West is going to do the right thing. Yeah. I don't blame him. Now, again, we'll keep an eye on the X account to see when Max posts again, because like I said, with the time zone difference, it could just be that he's asleep at this point in time. Another thing I wanted to show you also was this image here. Iranians are now throwing stones at a billboard of Donald Trump in Iran. I'm sorry, but this is cathartic. Yeah, I mean, you can't blame them there. He killed their leader. This was another one. Now this is in Spain. This is the San Fermin Festival in Spain. Read that banner. They are angry. So I'm trying to tell you guys, like, the world stands with Iran. The leaders don't necessarily represent the people in the country. So what we hear the leaders say isn't necessarily how the people say or how the people feel, right? So when I say question everything, like just this whole statement that came from CENTCOM, they've been known to lie. They are blaming this on Iran. Again, totally leaving out the agreement of the MOU where they are not supposed to take alternative routes during the Strait of Hormuz. If they do so, those ships will be targeted. Iran has made that very clear. But of course, now they're trying to make it seem like they're the victim and that they did absolutely nothing wrong. So they're heavily striking Iran right now at this point in time, during a time where they're supposed to be mourning. And it's just, to me, it's sick, it's disgusting, and it's disrespectful. And again, I'll check X again tomorrow. We'll check to see when Max tweets again. Another one who was there as well is Patrick Henningsen, who's also been on this show a couple of times. Patrick Henningsen is also there in Iran. So there's a number of journalists, Western journalists, that are there right now that went there to cover the funeral procession. So we hope that all of them are safe at this point in time. All right, let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Eric, we can go to part 2 for Tight VNC. All right. Thank you for the super chat, Vito. Love you, Sabby, like a Care Bear. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Laugh. CENTCOM confirms Israel still in charge of the U.S. Thank you, Unemployed Skylar. Uhuru. And thank you for this one. Colonialism must go. And thank you for this one as well. I think you sent this twice. Colonialism must go. Thank you. Nolly said, yes, the water is to cool people down. This happened for us during Hajj. Okay. All right. Yeah, I had never seen that before. I thought that was pretty cool. And thank you, Deep Green. It's crazy how U.S. corporate media still pushes that Iran is an authoritarian regime as if to never hold up a mirror and look at itself. There you go. There you go. Well said. Well said. All right, ladies and gents, do me a solid and smash that like button if you haven't done so. And now we're going to get into one of the many crazy stories tonight. The Tyler Robinson hearing is laughable at this point in time, but obviously not laughable if you're Tyler Robinson, because this will ultimately determine if you're going to have a trial and determine your future, your life, right? Right now, based on what I've seen so far, they have no proof that Tyler Robinson is the kid that is in this video that they are showing. They showed the video in the courtroom. I am not convinced. They cannot tell me that 100% with 100% certainty, they know for a fact that that is Tyler Robinson in that video. So let's go ahead and get into some of the things that are happening during the hearing, because it's sad, it's laughable. First and foremost, shout out to Diligent Denizen, who's been following this very closely. Charlie Kirk's parents just arrived at Provo Courthouse for Tyler Robinson without Erica. So this was something I did notice as well. Now, apparently they said in the courtroom, she was sitting next to his parents. I could not see that, but this is Charlie Kirk's parents entering the courthouse. And I just want to remind everybody, we have not, till this day, we have not heard anything from his parents, right? And they don't have to speak to the press or the public if they don't want to. They have every right to be completely, quiet and chill, that type of thing. But I noticed this as well, that they came alone. And I want to show you the difference here when we go to the Erica one. Erica, attending Charlie Kirk assassination preliminary hearing of Tyler Robinson today, he's already inside, not walking with Erica. So Donald Trump Jr. was there, and I found that to be interesting. I didn't know Donald Trump Jr. was close to Charlie Kirk like that, but he was there inside the courtroom. And as you can see, Erica arrives with security. Yeah, so that's Erica right there. And like I said, she has security with her. And that is one of the things that people were pointing out, which is that it was kind of weird to me. I would have thought that she would have arrived with his parents. But I don't know. We don't know how these things go. But she did not arrive with them. Then another thing about Donald Trump Jr., this was confirmed on Fox News that he was there inside. And I just find this a bit strange. Maybe you guys will have to tell me in the chat. Did you know that Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk were apparently very close or anything like that? It's just weird because it's like, again, Donald Trump Jr. is Trump's son. And it just feels kind of weird. But they do confirm it here.
Do have a reporter inside of the courthouse who also tells us that Donald Trump Jr. Is inside of the courtroom right now. There is immense security all over this property. There are agents on top of the roof. There's law enforcement all around us. Basically, anytime there's been any type of proceeding here in Provo, there's been immense security. It's very clear that this county and this state is taking this very seriously, Bill.
Yes, that's the other thing. Heavy security. Heavy security that is there in the attempt that, someone tried to harm someone who was going to be at the hearing. They have that place locked down. Now, let's get into some of the funny business. This is where things start off kind of odd. The prosecution is referring to this as murder when he is questioned about the manner of death. Now, defense, and rightfully so, they did object to this. Listen to this.
I think it'd be a great idea, Judge. I've just got one last question.
All right.
With respect to the medical examiner's report. Agent Hull, in that report, does the doctor relate cause and manner of death?
He does, yes.
Okay. And in that report, what is the stated cause of death?
It was stated as a murder.
And manner of death?
It was a gunshot wound to the neck.
I object. It's not stated as a murder. I believe it's stated as a homicide, which is an important distinction.
Judge, I'll go back.
Now, why is that an important distinction? Because if you define it as a murder, you are saying that, Tyler Robinson, he murdered him. So there's a difference between saying it was a murder and saying it's a homicide. So I'm glad that the defense did jump in and make that clarification, because I feel like sometimes people may not have picked up on that. So she's basically jumping in to say, wait a minute now, that's basically like saying Tyler Robinson did this and you know for sure that he did, which they don't know. And I'm going to point to other things to show you that they're really pulling this out of their ass. They don't know with 100% that Tyler Robinson did this, but they're trying to stick it on. They're trying to stick it anyway. That's the part you got to pay attention to.
I can correct that.
All right, so I'm going to sustain. Well, first of all, let me look at the report. I need to see that section. I need to be able to draw my own conclusion. Okay, I see. Ms. Nestor, are you referring to page 1 of this report?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Could you repeat that? I apologize.
As it relates to your objection for the misstatements, are you looking at page 1 of the report?
Yes.
All right.
And, Your Honor, I also need to make an objection on the best evidence rule too. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to sustain the objection as it relates to the manner of death. It does not say murder, but in regards to the best evidence rule, again, under 1102 and the Utah Constitution that it permits reliable hearsay, it is, State's Exhibit 11 is admitted.
So here's my thing on this. This is a question I have for the jury. If someone says, even with these objections and the pushback against the word murder and pushing to use the word homicide instead, even if the judge says, okay, to sustain, you're going to have to, change your vocabulary there. Does that exit the mind of a jury member? Even though the judge tell you, strike that from your memory there, does it really disappear? Does it really go away? And that's something I've always wondered. And to me, it's like, once you say it, you've already said it. Now, here is something I want you to hear from this woman here. She was in the courtroom. Her name is Eva Terry. And she said something that the defense was doing that I think is important. You guys need to hear this part here.
Strongest points that the defense had happened during the cross-examination of Chris Bagley, who is the UVU police officer. So Catherine Nestor, who is on the defense team, basically came at it from the angle of there was so much going on. How do we know that it was Tyler, and how can we connect it with this? So she brought up the fact that there was an empty holster found by Chris Bagley. And her point was, well, there could have been other things going on. It was so chaotic. There were only 6 police officers. So instead of giving an alternate possibility of who could be the shooter, it was mainly saying, how could we know that it was Tyler?
Yeah, and this is still
That part right there is very important. The defense is going with this argument that because it was so chaotic at that time and there were only, what she said, about 6 officers there, how can you say without the shadow of a doubt that it was Tyler Robinson? And I think that seems to be the angle that they're going with, that you have to convince the jury that 100% it was our client right here. Based on what I've seen so far, they have not proved that. And that's the part that but I'm telling you guys, it's cooked. From what I've seen, they've already decided that they're going to stick it to this kid. Whether Tyler Robinson was the person or whether Tyler Robinson was under some type of assignment, we don't know. We don't know. But from the very beginning of this hearing, it was very clear they have already decided that they have their person and it is going to be him, regardless if they have all the evidence that they need or not. So this is important for people to pay attention to. A lot of times when they already decide this is the person, I don't care what you come forward with, we already decided this is the person that is going to be convicted of this crime and we're sticking to it. Here's another part here.
Preliminary and early in this preliminary hearing, are we expecting to hear them present DNA evidence to point Tyler Robinson and connect him to the rifle?
So tomorrow, today we were supposed to hear from 4 witnesses, and we only got through 2. And the ones tomorrow include the officer to whom Tyler Robinson allegedly confessed. So I don't know about DNA evidence, but we will hear from someone who heard from Tyler right after it happened. And so that should be the next person that we hear from tomorrow morning.
And as you
Another thing that I read too is that, Lance Twiggs, who was Tyler Robinson's alleged roommate. Another thing that I read is that Lance Twiggs cannot be cross-examined. This is why I'm telling you the fix is already in. They've already decided this is how it's going to go. And that's a wrap. That's a wrap. So let me get to some of the other things that were revealed that I found very interesting. Remember when they said that Tyler Robinson was in that car? Officer admits that car said to belong to Tyler Robinson that was appearing on that Ring camera was reported to be driven by a bald man with 3 other people. Now, this is the first time, I'm going to let you guys hear it here. This is the first time I heard that there were 3 other people in that car and that the car was driven by a bald man.
Yes.
And do you remember that the Nobles told you that the driver of the vehicle was bald?
I do remember that being in the report, yes.
And you didn't mention that today when you were talking about that ring camera, did you?
I did not.
And did they also tell you there were 3 other people in the car?
Yes, I believe they thought that was the case.
Okay.
Hold up. Who is the bald guy that was driving the car? And why isn't that person being called to the hearing? Who's the bald guy? Also, who are the 3 other people that were in the car? Because when this was first reported and they said, oh, there's Tyler Robinson in the car on the ring camera, they didn't say anything. There was nothing said about a bald guy driving the car. Tyler Robinson isn't bald. So who was the bald guy driving the car? And who were the other 3 people? This is why I say the fix is in. They already decide. This is so, like, the story continues to change over time. But they already decided that he's going to be the guy. Here's another one. Charlie Kirk's assassination camera, the SD cards that were removed by Terrell Farnsworth minutes after he was murdered were given to law enforcement as a flash drive, not SD cards. So again, this is Diligent Denizen, who's been tracking this very closely. Listen to this, guys.
Visual Impulse, who was taking coverage of the event, and they provided to us that they had captured on September 10th of 2025.
And do you know who or how that video was collected from Visual Impulse?
Yeah, Mr. Farnsworth originally provided, I believe, a flash drive to Lieutenant O'Brien with one of the local agencies. And a short time after that, on September 10th, he provided downloadable versions, electronic versions to Agent Mortensen.
Pause. If the person, and we saw this video over and over, Terrell Farnsworth, who was removing those SD cards allegedly, if he took those SD cards and instead of giving the FD cards to them, he gave a flash drive, that means he took those SD cards, allegedly here, took it back to a computer, downloaded the information from the SD cards, then put that information on a flash drive. So I guess the question that I have is, if he gave them a flash drive, how do we know that he gave them everything that was on those SD cards? Is this not weird to people? Like, the very first thing when I saw that those SD cards were getting removed, I said to myself, like, that's weird. Why are you tampering with the crime scene? That's a crime scene at that point in time. You don't touch or take anything. So that's very strange. Why not just hand them the SD cards? Why would you take the SD cards and then download the information and then upload it to a flash drive? Very weird.
And an 1102 was collected from him on May 6th of 2026
So an 1102 was prepared by someone.
That means he transferred it.
Yes, Terrell Farnsworth was the individual that prepared it, and in preparation for this, I spoke to him personally regarding that statement.
And do you know what his association is with Visual Impulse?
I believe he's the owner-operator or the director of the company.
And then who collected that 1102 statement from Mr. Farnsworth?
It was Agent Mortensen who collected it.
Okay, and you know that because Agent Mortensen told you, or
He provided it to me, and then, as I mentioned, I subsequently spoke to Terrell Farnsworth personally regarding his statement.
Okay.
Oh my God, you guys. Guys, they have no way to prove that that is full evidence. They have no way to prove that. Like, this is wild and crazy to me. And if I were the defense should be able to request, I mean, it's probably too late now, but should have been able to request those the physical SD cards, not what was downloaded and uploaded to a flash drive. That's crazy to me. It almost seems as though like what did you remove? Now, check out this video here. There is literally zero evidence that this is Tyler Robinson. This hearing is a joke. Guys, check this out. Watch this video. You tell me if you know, you can say 100% that this is Tyler Robinson. Watch the video.
Coming up the stairs of the parking structure. Again, he seems to be having issues walking.
Now there's a limp, right? But who is this? Look at him again.
Again, he seems to be having issues walking.
Okay. He's having issues walking. How do you know that this is Tyler Robinson? So the guy walking up the stairs has on a baseball cap. He has on sunglasses. He has on a long sleeve shirt. How can you say 100% without a shadow of a doubt that that is the same person? And that's the problem that a lot of people have with this. They honestly, they can't.
And again, we're able to track Mr. Robinson when he leaves this parking structure.
Yes, we were able to.
Okay. So when he leaves the parking structure, where does he go?
He comes up around Campus Drive, as you can see on the video here. There's a cut through there north of the Losi building, and that's Mr. Robinson coming up the sidewalk. He has the noticeable gait or limp in his walk. And then he moves south across the front of the Losi building. Coming up.
So I just don't see how in a court of law, this is seen as undisputable, 100% evidence that this is the perpetrator. I don't see how. I don't see how you can honestly say that. So that's really questionable. The defense will have to try to prove that, well, do you know without a shadow of a doubt that that is the same person? So that's something they're going to have to prove there. And then here's another bombshell that I also did not know about. I'm just hearing about now. Officer claims that Tyler Robinson met with a TPUSA representative. So why didn't we hear about this earlier on? Check this out.
He heads out of the parking garage on foot into the campus and actually goes to the quad area of the campus. At that time, he makes contact with some representatives from TPUSA.
By quad area from there.
You hear that?
He heads out of the parking garage on foot into the campus and actually goes to the quad area of the campus. At that time, he makes contact with some representatives from TPUSA.
So they are saying Tyler Robinson made contact with representatives from TPUSA. That's the first time I heard that. And who were the representatives? Now, I don't know. Somebody said his limp disappeared. Do you see that here?
He heads out of the parking garage on foot into the campus and actually goes.
Where's the limp? I thought he was limping. Where's the limp? Unless this is before. Is this before? I don't know.
Goes to the quad area of the campus. At that time, he makes contact with.
So on his way to the campus, they said this is Tyler Robinson. Again, they have to say it without a shadow of a doubt. He is wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Shorts and a t-shirt. Let me come back up. Does anybody see the book bag? Hold on. Let's come down here. I'm trying to see if he has a book bag.
And actually goes to the quad area of the campus. At that time, he makes contact with some representatives from TP.
Where's the book bag? Are they saying that he grabbed a book bag later? It doesn't look like he has on a book bag there. And they're saying, remember, they said that he changed clothes. So he has on shorts here and a short sleeve t-shirt. And then in the other video, he's wearing he's wearing jeans and he has on a long sleeve shirt. But the point that I'm trying to make is we cannot look at this and say without a shadow of a doubt, 100% that is the same person. We don't know that. And especially with nowadays with AI, we don't know, guys, we don't know what they're trying to do. Now, here's the craziest part of it all. The UVU police officer's body cam battery went dead right during the crucial time after he had allegedly found the screwdriver on the roof of the Lossie Center building. Listen to this part. How convenient.
All right, your body cam footage that I reviewed appears to end while you're still on the roof. Do you know why that is?
I think the battery went dead. It was just right at that moment.
Okay. And do you know, did you ever turn it back on that day or go get it, I don't know, what do you have to do, charge it or stick a new battery in it? I don't even know.
Usually dock it, but no, I didn't go back. It was too chaotic running around.
So that 27-minute and 35-second body cam that starts when you're at the Hall of Flags and ends while you're still on the roof, but haven't put the crime tape up yet, that's the only body cam you have that day?
Yes.
How convenient. Well. So this is what I'm saying, guys. They don't have enough information. They're trying to use the little bit that they have to say that this is definitely the person, but they really don't. They don't have 100% concrete proof that this is him. There's been a number of things that have happened, along the way with this that we've been talking about over time. The stories just do not add up. I'm not even convinced that's the same person in the second video that was in the first video that I showed you. I'm not convinced. When they talked about him changing clothes over and all this kind of stuff, I was thinking in my mind, when did he have time to do all that? When they talked about him jumping off the roof and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, is Tyler Robinson, Jason Bourne? Like, none of this adds up. But somewhere along the way, they had already decided this was going to be the person. And that's what they're sticking with. This is just the hearing. This is not the trial. The hearing is to determine whether or not, I guess, this is going to go to trial, which it seems like it probably will. Eric was just letting me know, too, the jury is not present at the hearing just yet, but the judge is present, right? So to me, it's just, guys, it's obvious. It's obvious. They don't have enough. They're going with what they have. The body cam just happened to turn off during a crucial moment. Question everything. I really do think they really want to go with this narrative because the whole idea was to blame the left. It's the left who did this. It's the left who came after Charlie Kirk. That was already the narrative that was written. And so now it's like they have to find a way to stick to that narrative. So this has to be the guy. This has to be the guy because he had the roommate that was trans, etc., and all that. So they want that to fit their narrative. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is a stage. Question everything. People are really being hoodwinked. But I think most of you know better. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Hey, where did it go? JB said, if Tyler Robinson walks, this will put more of a spotlight on Israel. Yeah, I could see that. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Happy Stacker. Great show as always. Thank you. I know myself said there is no evidence, but they're going to have a trial. Joy said, yeah, they were friends. Candace talked about it in the Sean Ryan interview. Okay, so they were friends. Oh, thank you, Measured Man. Candace mentioned Donald Trump Jr. as a friend and called BS because why so quiet? She was pissed when they started running the story 2 weeks ago. Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. And you can strike it from the record, but it's too late. It's out there. Something my son taught me as an attorney. Sometimes they do it on purpose. Good point and good to know. All right, ladies and gents, do me a solid and smash that like button for me. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share just like a Care Bear. Let's move on to the next story. This one is interesting. Oh boy, let's talk about the hypocrisy around here, folks. So, Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt made a statement about Gen Z that apparently they are rather lazy, according to Karoline. And many people are not happy with what she said, not just people who are on the left. Of course, that's mainly who she was attacking in this video we're going to get into. But also, some people on the right are not happy with what she said, that Gen Z is lazy, especially considering just how fortunate Karoline Leavitt happens to be. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here. This is where everything goes crazy when Karoline Leavitt says that, oh God, we're facing a full communist revolution that's coming. I tell you guys, these people are actors, right? So what I say, she ran for office at one point. That didn't work out. Then she got this gig as press secretary. And I think a lot of these people, if they could have had it their way, they would have gone into Hollywood. Check this out.
Candidates running for the modern day Democrat Party. This is not your granddaddy's Democrat Party. This is not the Democrat Party of JFK. This is a full-blown communist revolution that is taking over Capitol Hill right here in Washington, D.C., just a few steps away from where we are sitting right now. The inmates are running the asylum. These are crazy people who are advocating against what I call the 3 Ps: prison, police, and private property. They don't want any of those things, and those are the ideals that founded this great country 250 years ago. But as President Trump says, communism is easy to sell. You just promise people free stuff. Until a few years, you're living in squalor with no free home, no free food. You're just sitting there with a whole bunch of communists looking around and saying, what the heck happened to our failed state?
And the president said...
So let me just say here again, for the 100th time, there is no true communist country in the world. China is not a communist country. A lot of people get this wrong. Some of them get it wrong on purpose.
He'd be a great communist. He'd give everything away for free.
It's an easy sale to make.
But he said communism, this new strain, it's the biggest threat the country in 250 years has ever faced. I mean, that's a powerful statement.
And he's 100% right about that, because if you look at these candidates, they are becoming mainstream in the modern day Democrat Party. You mentioned Chuck Schumer is worried about his leadership position. He should be, because if he was in a primary in New York State against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is a socialist and probably commie curious, as you pointed out, he would get wiped out. And he's the leader of the Democrat Party. Hakeem Jeffries is afraid of these candidates running because they are going to take over the Democrat Party. So the way that we stop this communist revolution in its tracks is for great Americans across the country who love America, who are celebrating her in 250 years of our great nation this week, to vote against this communist revolution, vote against the Democrats. There's only one choice. It's President Trump, it's the Republican Party, and it's common sense. That's what this is about. Communism versus common sense.
That's a good way to...
Let me pause here for a second. First of all, Donald Trump is not running in 2028, so there's that. They know that they're on track to lose the midterms. That's why they're doing the communism fear. I was telling you guys about this recently. Donald Trump just made the speech during his America 250 celebration, and he was really going after the communists, right? He was like, it's communism. The commies are coming and da-da-da. That's the fear tactic that they're going to use going into the midterms and going into 2028. Problem is, I don't think it's going to work. People are broke. People are tired. People just want to be able to make a living for themselves, for their family, and it's not working out. The American empire has been declining for quite some time now, and I'm just not sure the name calling is going to be on your side this time around, right? But there's a lot of hypocrisy, like a lot of criticism is going towards Karoline Leavitt because it's easy for her to say these things given her current situation. Because Karoline would make you have it or make you believe that she just worked hard and got to where she is. No. Because all of us aren't like Karoline. All of us can't marry a rich old dude, right? So people started calling her out about this. We'll go on a little bit more when she gets to the lazy part.
Frame it. If it doesn't go that way, if these commies get in, they're going to be a powerful little caucus. They're going to here to blow things up. They're not here to negotiate Pentagon funding. They want zero Pentagon funding. They're in here to destroy the country. How would the president negotiate with people like that?
I'm not sure.
let me just pause here. First of all, these people aren't even socialists, right? So they would never, this is why they would never bring on someone who's going to correct them on the definitions of these terms. Okay. Socialism, communism, and social democracy. These are three different things. Essentially, what you have with people like AOC and the DSA crowd, they basically support the same type of policies that countries like Norway and Denmark have, where everybody has health care, right? Everybody has paid sick leave. The university tuition is free. By the way, at one point in time, there were public universities in the US that used to have free tuition. University of California, back in the day, the tuition was free, if I remember correctly, if you were in state in California or something like that. There was also New York, where the public, I think, was it SUNY or CUNY? One of them, tuition was free. So we did have these programs at one point or another, right? Things changed when neoliberalism took hold and people said capitalism is the way to go. So it's important that you understand these are all three different things. It's not the same thing. So even though AOC calls herself a socialist, she is also a social democrat, right? Like she supports democratic socialism. That's not the same thing. Let's continue on here.
Sure you can, and I think that's why the president is being so bold in warning the American public against this communist takeover of the Democrats. And as Ronald Reagan perfectly stated, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. If these communists are...
Ronald Reagan is the reason why the economy started to tank the way that it did, Ms. Karoline Leavitt. That was a horrible example to mention there, because the reality is Ronald Reagan's economic policy of trickle down economics was horrible for the United States, because it actually did not trickle down. All these people that had this wealth at the top, they hoarded that wealth and it didn't trickle down to the little people. So a horrible example to bring up for the type of whatever economic future that you want for the United States.
Given a chance at power here in Washington, D.C., if they retake the majority in Washington away from the Republicans, we will be heading down a communist takeover. Ask the people of Cuba how that worked out for them. They are begging to come here right now.
Some of these kids, and I call them...
See, they always use Cuba as an example. People in Cuba are begging to come here. Some of them are begging to come here because the U.S. keeps turning off their lights and their electricity and shit like that. Because the U.S. keeps sanctioning people in Cuba. Let's not forget that part.
Kids, because they're in their 20s and they've never had real jobs and they're complaining things are expensive. Yes, things are expensive when you don't have a real job.
That's right.
This part, they never had real jobs, and they don't understand. Okay. A lot of people, a lot of these kids work part-time jobs and go to school. What do you really consider a real job? Because is a real job like what he does? It is sitting in front of the camera at Fox News and you just lie to people and do infotainment? Because the thing is that a real job doesn't always pay what you need to make in order to pay your bills. So do you see the class perspective? This is what I'm telling you guys. This is what they don't want you to understand. They don't want people to grasp this. They want people to fight each other, left versus right. They're going to do the commie thing. They're going to do that attack because it still works. It works on some people. Now, I don't think it's working as much on a lot of the younger people, but it does still work on some. But the reality is this is a class issue. This is a class perspective. It's easy to say those things when you're sitting up on your high horse and you're making millions and you show up to the studio and someone does your makeup and you might have a driver to take you to the studio just for you to get paid millions to lie. But you're not in their position. You're not in the position of a lot of these younger people who are just trying their best just to get by. They're not asking to be rich. They're asking just to get by. So pay attention to that. It really is us versus the elites, guys.
Do you think that's getting traction? Complaining?
Unfortunately, I do, because this generation, my generation, I hate to say it, Gen Z and those younger than me have been raised with just silver spoons in their mouth, just getting everything handed to them. That's not the values this country was built on. It was built on.
Stop. This is where everyone's coming after her for. According to Karoline Leavitt, Gen Z has been raised with a silver spoon in their mouth and everything has been handed to them. What about all the Gen Z kids that are from low-income households, Karoline? What world do you live in? What about all the Gen Z kids that have one parent and the parents work in multiple jobs? Or they have two parents and they work multiple jobs? Or they have a part-time job while they're in high school? What Gen Z kids are you talking about, Karoline? The majority of Americans don't have it like that. The majority of Americans can't afford to miss a paycheck. Who are you talking about? Maybe people in your class bubble. Very much outside the lines, folks.
Meritocracy and hard work, pulling up your sleeves, pulling yourself up from your bootstraps, and achieving the American dream. And we need to protect it with all we got.
Is it lazy?
There it is. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Karoline Leavitt did not pull up herself by the bootstraps. Karoline Leavitt took the, I like to call it, the Real Housewives path out. That's how she got to where she is. She didn't like pull, oh, let me go grind hard and work hard out there. No. She took the easy way out. She found somebody that had money. That's what Karoline Leavitt did. And there's many like her. And then they sit up on their high horse and they try to look down their noses at you. Girl, bye. What a mess. So he's asking, is it laziness?
A little bit.
Is it because the professor said the country's corrupt, it's evil, and we just need to shake them down and hand money out?
It's laziness and it's the liberal indoctrination. You bring up a great point about our education system. However, I will say a silver lining, so many parents that I talk to across the country are homeschooling, are turning to private education, are turning towards Christian schools across the country because they don't want their children being taught these communist and liberal ideas slammed down their throat. It's why President Trump in the White House has advocated so strongly for school choice across the country. We want kids to be taught to love our country. They should. It is the greatest country in the history of the world.
All right.
No, it's not the greatest country. Maybe the murderous country. Maybe. Let's comment on what she just said here about what Jesse was just saying, that their professors taught them this. So again, the class perspective. You're assuming that every Gen Z kid goes to college. They don't. They totally dismiss the lower class, people who are lower income, people who are poor. I'm not even going to mention middle class because that's like not really a thing in the US anymore. But they totally dismiss those people. And so they're focusing on a small segment of the population that is Gen Z, that is attending college. And then out of those that are attending college, how many of them are attending college and they're there with financial aid? How many of them are there because they're on a scholarship and they couldn't attend without that? So this is a small little mind that Karoline Leavitt has. Then she gets into the laziness part. Well, let's talk about the laziness for you, Karoline. Because she retracts this statement. Because people started calling her out on the left and on the right. Here's one. Political Punk said, hey, Gen Z, stop being so lazy and marry a wealthy real estate developer that is your dad's age, like all the real bootstrappers do. Karoline Leavitt did not pull herself up by the bootstraps. Karoline Leavitt found an older man that had money. She did the Real Housewives approach. That's what she did. No boots, no straps. She found someone who was already there, who had the money, and that's who she married. And if that's you, Karoline, that's you, boo. Do you. But don't sit back here and pretend as though you had to grind and work hard to get to where you are. No, you married into it. That's important. That's significant. She even mentioned it here because apparently Megyn Kelly didn't know about this. And it was mentioned on the podcast. Listen to this.
I didn't know until today that you married a man who's a lot older.
Yes.
He's 59, you're 27.
Yes.
How did that happen?
I met my husband during my congressional campaign. A mutual friend of ours hosted an event at a restaurant that he owns up in New Hampshire and invited my husband, and I was speaking, and we met, we were acquainted as friends, and then we fell in love, as you said. And
was there any I can't date him, he's 59,
yes,
57,
of course. Whatever. I mean, it's very atypical love story, but he's incredible. He's my greatest supporter. He's my best friend. He's my rock.
So see, even Megyn Kelly didn't know that. And she says, well, we fell in love. I would say you fell in money. I don't think a broke guy, I don't think she gets married to a guy with no money. I don't think she gets married to a guy with no no money. I'm just saying, let's just keep it real. Okay. Eric, can we go to part 2? Because see, like I said, she did retract this. She retracted her statement. So that's how much heat she got for saying what she said about young people, especially considering you look at an organization like Turning Point USA, which is their main goal is to get the youth vote. And you got the press secretary here shitting on the youth, saying that, oh my God, they're just lazy people. The jokes are coming in, ladies and gents. When your mom was 12, when your husband graduated from high school, all the pictures, everybody got the jokes. When your mom was 12, your husband graduated from high school. So it's like I said, you married into money, Karoline. Just admit that. Do you? If you get impregnated by a billionaire, 32 years your senior, you too can experience the American dream. So, Miss, pull yourself. I keep telling you guys, a lot of the people that say pull yourself up by the bootstraps didn't even have their own boots and straps. They married into it. So there you go. 60 years old, 28 years old. He's old enough to be her daddy. Old enough to be her dad. Get out of here. I don't know if he's actually a billionaire, but the guy, he got money. He got money. So girl, bye. Guys that are in their 60s, you said what? Khadijah said she pulled down them bra straps. Damn. A lot of men, like most men that are by the time they're like 60 years old, they got some stuff like tucked away, money tucked away and stuff like that. And a lot of younger women know that. And Karoline Leavitt knows that. She knows it. Stefan said, granddaddy. Get out of here. If you met this man and he had no money, there's no marriage, period. You were not going to get married to the 60-year-old man if he didn't have any money. Girl, bye. So she is trying to pull back her statement. I'm seeing a lot of bad faith actors take my comments from this interview out of context. So here's the full interview and let me expound. So, of course, she goes into talking about communism and all that. That's the new, boogeyman that they're going to throw at people. And let me go into the part here where she talked about the Gen Z. At the same time, it's also true that many Gen Z Americans are hardworking, entrepreneurial, and deeply patriotic. And it's vital we protect the American dream for them. So you see how she had to retract? That's because she was getting attacks from both sides. Yes, both sides, ladies and gents. And that's why, so she's like, then she goes back to communism. I will continue to call out the radical Democrats socialists and communists. Oh, look, she admits these are all three separate things. Oh my God, this woman is a joke. Yeah. A lot of these people that say, pull yourself up by the bootstrap. Guys, you got to look into this stuff. A lot of times they didn't pull up themselves by the bootstraps, no boots, no straps. And there you have it. There you have it. But she's looking down on you. No, you didn't work hard. You married an old dude that had a lot of money. Question everything. Question it all. Oh my God. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Thank you for the super sticker, JB. Karoline Leavitt is a great value. Amy Schumer that doesn't know what communism or socialism is. Thank you, unemployed Skylar. Real job is colonial theft. Whitwater says, all I hear are trigger words and dog whistles. Thank you, Roger. Sabby, what are you talking about to get where she is today? She did grind hard on the dude who became her husband. Oh my God. You guys are a trip. Namar says she's a literal sugar baby. Eric says she found his boots and pulled the straps. Thank you, JJ. How dude got money and married that plastic face. Thanks, Deep Green. Imagine talking shit about your own generation, wanting everything on a platter, only to get pimped out by old money. Thanks, Kinman. Leavitt's husband doesn't look a day over 70. And thank you for this one. Leavitt needs therapy for grandpa issues. Oh my God. It's hilarious, guys. It's hilarious. Okay, let's get to the next story. We got to find out what happened to this young man. We got to find out what happened to him. Nolan Wells went on a, beach type trip with his friends. This island called Horn Island off the coast of Mississippi. So these are Mississippi teenagers. They decided to go out, boat ride out on Horn Island. Now, here's the problem. Nolan's friends returned home. Nolan did not. And now there are reports that Nolan has been found dead. What happened to this young man? Let's get into this clip here. A body has been found on Horn Island as the massive search for missing teen Nolan Wells continues. This is when he was described as missing and they didn't find the body just yet. Listen to what he says here.
A body was found Monday morning during the search for a missing Mississippi teenager who vanished during a 4th of July trip to a popular island. The identity of the body is still unknown at this time. According to the Jackson County Sheriff's Department, 18-year-old Nolan Wells was last seen around 3 p.m. Saturday on Horn Island, just off the Mississippi coast. It is reported that he was wearing black shorts and sunglasses when he disappeared. Authorities say that Nolan had traveled to the island by boat with his friends, but it is unclear whether he actually made it back to the mainland. Over the holiday weekend, the island was packed with boaters, and officials say that Wells was last seen on the island's northwest tip. This comes from a statement from Mayor Kesheev. If you were on Horn Island on July 4th, traveled by boat in the area, or believe you may have seen Nolan or given him a ride from the island, please contact authorities immediately. Even the smallest detail could make a difference. Nolan is reportedly 6 feet tall and he weighs 180 pounds. It's said that he was hanging out with a girl before he disappeared, and his mother says that her son was separated from his phone at some point before.
Listen to this.
Before he vanished. The device is now back with his family in Mississippi. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources or the Jackson County Sheriff's Department.
So we're going to get into the story about the girl because she seems to have a very consistent story. And I wanted you to hold on to the part about the cell phone. At some point or another, Nolan was separated from his cell phone. His cell phone made it back. He did not. That's important. Hold on to that piece about the cell phone made it back, but he did not. What teen do you know goes off without their cell phone? That's important because the story just keeps on changing. So let's go ahead and get into this part here. This is where they were reporting on Good Morning America that his body was indeed found.
This morning, the desperate search for answers in Mississippi after the death of 18-year-old Nolan Wells, authorities recovering a body believed to be the teen. Investigators and volunteers from the Cajun Navy spent the weekend urgently searching for Wells after he vanished from Horn Island on July 4th.
Nolan Wells was on a boat. He left from a private dock area in the Ocean Springs area and proceeded with his friends to Horn Island.
Wells was visiting the barrier island 10 miles from the Gulf Coast, boating with friends, last seen about 3 p.m. Saturday.
Pause. Horn Island, they said it was 10 miles from the Gulf Coast. The only way that you can get there is by boat. This is important because the friend said that, well, we were leaving. He stayed there. There's conflicting stories happening. One of the stories is that they decided to leave. He wanted to stay behind and talk to this alleged girl. The other story is that they thought he was on the boat with them. And then the other story that is coming out is that the girl was already on the boat, so he couldn't have been wanting to stay behind with her. Either way, you can't get there without a boat. So you can't get home without a boat. So keep that in mind when you're listening about the story, because there's a number of things that are coming out about this. So this was a 4th of July event. Not sure if there was alcohol involved. I don't know. But, you know, teenagers could have been hanging out, could have been drinking a little bit. I don't know. But this is important when you see the other video that came out today. They were not alone. A lot of people think it was just him and those other 4 friends that you see in the picture. No, there were other people who were there. So we'll get to that as well.
They left and went back without Nolan. From what we understand, he chose to stay there.
Later that night, when he didn't return home, his mother reporting him missing to police, then quickly taking to social media, posting pictures of the teen, pleading for help finding him. The heartbreaking discovery made about 8:45 Monday morning when authorities say the Mississippi Community College wide receiver's suspected body was found in the water just off the shore. His mother writing, "His father, our family, friends, and I are absolutely devastated," describing Wells as a sweet son who was always willing to cheer and uplift others. Now, investigators say they suspect he drowned, but they're still interviewing friends who were with him as they work to pinpoint what exactly happened.
That's why we're still asking for information if anybody has anything, any knowledge.
And that information, the sheriff says, will help them paint a better picture of what happened to Nolan in the moments before his death. A toxicology report from the coroner's office is still pending. Guys?
So they're assuming that he may have drowned. How did that happen? No, it's not Golden Mask. This isn't adding up. No, it's not adding up. And now let me get to the other information that is being revealed, because the kids are out today. This is the video that is now being apparently investigated by authorities. This is one of many recordings on the 4th of July from people on boats on Horn Island, as they can see and hear a verbal altercation happening between this is Nolan and his friends. Now, look at this video. You're going to have to listen closely because you can start to hear the cussing and stuff like that. Pay attention to this because I want you to see this and realize they were not there by themselves. I think that was believed at first, but you can see all these other people on their boats who were also at Horn Island. Watch this. Pause right here. See the people in this boat? See how everybody's looking in the same direction? I'm going to show you the slow-mo too. You got to listen for it carefully, but it says, I'm going to fuck you up. Listen. You hear that? That's where the cussing is. Okay. But as you can see, I told you, young people, they on it. Notice how they are not alone. This is what I was saying. The teenagers are over here on the sand, right? So as you can see, there's multiple people at Horn Island that day on their boats It was not just him and a couple of his friends. I think that was believed at first, but now we're seeing more video footage appear. So he wasn't alone and they weren't alone. Now let's go into the slow-mo video because that'll show you something here. Law enforcement, again, is investigating this video that apparently they're saying there was an altercation. So watch the slow motion here. They're right over here. So you got teenagers, you got people, these are adults here, I guess, on the boats over here, but then there's also a group of teenagers. Another thing I want to point out, and if you look at some of these other pictures as well, a lot of people thought, they were like, oh, he was the only black person. No, he was not. So pay close attention. He wasn't the only black person there. It was a group of teenagers who went to that island. See all the people? Yeah, so they're not alone. And what we need to know, these people, let's get to the people on the boat. Where's my boat peeps? These people who were right here on the boat and they were looking, looks like they were looking at the teenagers, looking in their direction. We need to know what they saw. What happened after that verbal, I'm going to F you, you know, that type of thing. What happened after that? That's what we need to find out. Those people who were there on the boats, they may have seen more. I don't know for sure, but obviously something caught their gaze for all of them to stare in the same direction. Now, see, this is important. When this story was first reported, there was no reporting of an altercation. There was none of that. You see how many people are there? But you mean to tell me nobody saw anything? So this is why sometimes it's good to wait and see when other videos come out so you can see for yourself. All the people here at this part of Horn Island, just at this part, as you can see, it extends further. And you mean to tell me nobody saw nothing? These kids got on the boat and went home and he was left there? Nobody saw this? That's, if I was an investigator, I would be interviewing everybody, all these people that were on these boats. The guy right there in the water with the beer can. Hold on. See the guy sitting right here, down here at the bottom with the beer can in his hand? He's also looking in their direction. Something is happening there. Yes, John Doe, multiple witnesses. See, the TikTok kids are always on it. The TikTok kids are always on it. So as you can see, it was not just 4 people. Now, let's go to the next part because people keep asking about the girl. We want to do the girl one now. Yeah, let's do the girl one. And then we'll get to what happened to, sorry guys, I was actually talking to myself. We'll do the girl one first, and then we'll get to what happened to their accounts. Now, listen to what she says here.
Nolan Xavier Wells is an 18-year-old college student. He went missing on the 4th of July after partying with his friends on Horn Island, and there have been so many questions, speculation, and how did this happen? Things are slowly starting to make sense. So we're just gonna talk about it. I'm very scatterbrained, so I'm trying to get all of the thoughts out. It's just, there's a lot of moving pieces. This right here is Katie McCormick. Katie McCormick is one of the people that was around Nolan on the 4th of July. I've been reading a lot of comments on Facebook, and all of these comments are from people that know them. They either know Nolan, Katie, one of the boys, a mixture. Yeah, as we know, people say a ton of things on the internet, so I just want to make sure before I put things out that I actually believe this to be true, because I don't want to share anything that is, unhelpful, messy, disrespectful family, anything like that. There are a lot of posts saying that Katie is his girlfriend. That's not true. Many people that were there that day have stated that Katie and Nolan met on that day. They met on that day.
Pause. This is significant. So that's one of the things that's being debunked right now online. She's going to show you examples of that. The girl here named Katie, allegedly named Katie, was not his girlfriend. According to what is being reported now, they just met that day.
Nolan came with his people, Katie came with her own people. They met because it was this huge party that was happening in the water. This is a comment on Facebook from Ashton. Ashton knows Katie personally. I'm gonna let y'all pause and read. What Ashton is saying is that Katie is a genuine and sincere person, that she hasn't really played a part in this, did not meet him until that day. You know, Ashton continued, if anything, everyone needs to be questioning the friends and definitely not Katie.
Questioning the friends, which we're gonna get into a little bit of information about the friends too, and about who their parents are. This is really important. So many people started to point their fingers at and blame the girl. Now you're hearing something else.
Personally, like, sense genuinity behind this comment. You know, I looked at their page. They seem to actually know each other. This is another person who knows Katie personally. She said, I know Katie since she was in 4th grade, and her story is literally the only one that hasn't changed. Now that line kind of sat with me. The only one that hasn't changed. So whose story changed? And she asks, you know, who was on the boat with her that can back her up and vouch that she was with them the whole time. Grace goes on and says that Katie has made a full statement to police and Nolan's mom, and he didn't see him physically get back on the boat, but she saw his friends telling him to get on the boat, but everybody was in the water. And I've seen videos, there was a lot of people. I'm sure she...
Pause. I know she's talking fast, but listen. Katie gave a statement to the police. You know why? Because apparently Katie has nothing that she needs to hide. This is important. She came forward to give a statement to the police, ladies and gentlemen. People keep asking, why haven't his friends, why aren't they coming forward? They said that Katie's story has not changed.
Got on the boat, but everybody was in the water. And I've seen videos, there was a lot of people. I'm sure she doesn't know the exact time, but what I do know is Katie's story is the only one who hasn't changed at all this time. She told the cops and the mom the same thing. So she reiterated the fact that her story hasn't changed. So whose story has changed? I found this very interesting. And again, this is somebody who personally knows them. Grace goes on and she says, the boys also stated they came back and realized that he didn't ride back with somebody else. They then stated as well too, a different story, is that he stayed behind with Katie. So which one was
it? So either you realized he wasn't on the boat and you came back, or it's this other story where you said that you knew he didn't want to come back with you because he wanted to stay behind with Katie, but Katie didn't stay behind. So now I'm starting to see changing stories. Now, I'm no detective, but something is not adding up. I don't know if it was an accident. I don't know what could have happened, right? This kid is dead. So we don't know if there could have been that altercation that we saw could have gotten more physical. We don't know if maybe it was an accident. We don't know. What we do know is that his friend's story is not adding up.
it? Did he stay behind with Katie? Or was he supposed to be on the boat with y'all and y'all didn't realize that he came back or didn't come back? She goes on, and I found this interesting as well too. Several have said they saw the boys fighting. I've seen that video of the person who was parked next to them, and if you listen to the audio, it sounds like people are fighting. They're like, get on the fucking boat, or
yep.
It's hard to tell. There's a lot going on, but you can definitely sense a fight is going on. We're just gonna talk about it. I'm very scatterbrained. So
you guys saw that part about the boat again. And again, like I said, you can hear them. Now, for the people who were blaming this girl, you hear what the friends are saying online, people who know her, who are friends with her, that was not the case. That's not his girlfriend. She apparently met him that day. Everybody came back except for Nolan. And now Nolan is dead. Okay? Then go back to the story that was reported earlier about the cell phone. What teenager do you know gets separated from their cell phone willingly? And if he wanted to stay behind on the island, why would he stay behind without his phone? Does that make any sense to you guys? On an island where you can't get back unless you go on the boat? Does that really make sense? So the parents said that they have his cell phone. The point that I'm making is this. How did he get separated from his phone? Hell, I'm not even a teenager. I don't get separated from my phone. You really think he would stay behind on an island without his phone? Come on, man. Come on. And they had his phone. It's wild.
This is a lot. I genuinely feel like Katie, because a lot of people on Facebook at least are like attacking her. I genuinely feel like, you know, and I could be wrong, this is just my opinion. I feel like Katie is innocent in this. I feel like they most likely met, and it sounds like was somebody jealous that, or upset that he was talking to this pretty white girl, you know, the black guy, whatever, and he's with a bunch of white men. Was somebody butthurt about that? Because according to the other girl, they started fighting after the encounter with Katie. So what triggered this fight? And also, why are they telling different stories? We got one story is, oh, he got on the boat and we thought he was on the boat, then we realized he wasn't. And then, oh, but the other story is he stayed with Katie, because people are leaving those comments on my Instagram too, is that he stayed with Katie. He insisted on being back there with Katie. But Katie got on the boat with her people. I don't know. And Katie.
And I don't know either, but Katie got on the boat. What happened to this kid? Now I want to show you the other part here that is very interesting. These friends that were there have started to delete their social media accounts. Some of it could be because maybe they were getting shit from people on social media. But given the fact that he's now dead, that's not a good look.
These are Nolan Wells' friends that didn't remember anything, but they remembered to deactivate every single social media account that they have. Them, his girlfriend, their parents, all the accounts deactivated and wiped clean. All of them. Jax, Eric, Wyatt, Warren, Morgan, jail. Jail for everyone. Because, you know, they're already circling the wagons. They're already lawyered up. But wait, their parents are doctors, lawyers, and judges. This is the father of one of his friends. And this is the stepmama, Ashley Cole, court judge for Jackson, George, and Greene counties in the beautiful state of Mississippi, has already deactivated her account.
Whoa, that's the big one right there. The doctor part, you know, the judge part is the big one. So one of the kids' parents is a fucking judge. And her account is now deactivated.
Activated all the accounts, and they have all unfollowed Nolan. And this is Katie, who is either a friend, close friend, or girlfriend, who is supposedly, allegedly cooperating with authorities because all the other friends are lawyered up and circling.
And this has been corrected that she was not his girlfriend, that they had just met that day. But what is important is that she's cooperating with authorities. The other friends are not coming forward, and that shit is sus. And now you see that one of the friends has a parent who is a judge. That is suspect. All of them have unfollowing Nolan's account now that he's dead. This don't seem weird to you guys? Because here's the thing. If you didn't do anything wrong, why are you unfollowing his account now? As if pictures don't still exist. There's multiple pictures of Nolan with the same people who are his friends. Multiple pictures. I mean, talk about making yourself look suspicious.
The wagons and not helpful and not talking. The doctors and the lawyers and the judges' parents of these 5 have said that they would like privacy, please, at this time. But you know what? Name them publicly. No privacy and no peace for Eli, also known as Jax, Eric, Wyatt, Warren, and Morgan. What happened to Nolan? What did you do to Nolan? His phone came back safe, but he didn't? Why were y'all arguing just minutes before he was reported missing?
You know what this reminded me of when I first heard about this story with the boat and the island and everything? It reminded me of the Murdaugh boys in South Carolina. It reminded me of the Murdaugh boys in South Carolina when the youngest one, I forget his first name, he was drinking and driving a boat. You know, he was drunk and driving a boat at the same time. And the boat hit one of those, you know, one of the poles that's connected to a pier. It hit something there. And, you know, one of the girls was ejected from the boat and she died. She apparently hit her head and then drowned and died. That's what this, because they tried to cover that up. And then remember who his dad was. His dad was a lawyer. His granddaddy was a lawyer. His great granddaddy was a lawyer down in low country, South Carolina. And they pretty much had run that town. And they tried to cover it up. Now, it all came back out, later on. But that's kind of what this reminds me of. And I wonder if there was some type of accident and that's why they're not talking. I wonder. Buster was the older son, but the younger son, because wasn't Buster the older one? The younger son was the one who was driving the boat that night, and he was drunk, and they had an accident. And the girl, I think her name was Mallory or something. The girl was ejected from the boat, and she hit her head, and that's how she drowned. And they had finally found her body. And Paul, yes, thank you, John. That's what this reminds me of. And so I am wondering, maybe they'll find out more during the autopsy report. I'm wondering if there was some type of foul play. Don't know. What if there was a physical altercation? If that argument escalated into something more? We don't know right now. But given the fact that you can see in that video that there were multiple people there that were present, you mean to tell me none of those people saw anything? They were looking directly at them at that point in time. What happened after that video?
And y'all were continuing to party late into the evening. Other boats that were docked and parked next to yours saw y'all. But Nolan was missing. We're going to find out. The truth shall come to light.
I think they know something. Either they were involved or they know something. Something is not, You guys are a little too quiet. Now, the parents did post a message here, a message from the parents of Nolan Wells posted on Facebook. This is from, it says, Christine here. I want you all to know a GoFundMe has not been created by myself, husband, family, or friends. So if you see any, please report that it's not authentic. We will notify everyone if we choose to create one. Okay, so everybody see that? So the parents are saying that they have not created a GoFundMe. So if you see one, it's probably fake. Guess what else I found? Did you know that Nolan, this is interesting, Nolan Wells was on a podcast with some of his teammates talking about football.
Yeah, really. It's really like a brotherhood, and not just in here, like school, community, classroom, like everything.
Yeah.
Just really having love for your teammates and just Ocean Springs in general.
Do y'all hang out outside of here a lot?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Do we?
Y'all live together pretty much? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It be everywhere.
Sure.
Us three. Last spring, us three, bro, we were together every day, wasn't it? Like when it was it spring when it was cold and then he had the Chrysler?
Oh, that was
fall.
like 2 years ago. But
fall,
every
bro.
day, we just working out, go to the crib, play the workout, eat, go to the crib, play the game, go home, get back on the game, just chilling. Yeah, really. It's really like a brotherhood, and not just in here.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Football player, and it's just, sometimes I don't know, guys. Sometimes with teenagers, things happen or whatever. Again, like I said, I wonder if there was alcohol involved. I don't know. But I do think it's interesting that when this story was first reported, it was reported as though the only people that were there was Nolan and his friends in that picture with him on the boat. Then when you get this other video that has been released, you see there were multiple people who were there. So my question is, let me pull this out of the way here, honey buns, and let's just come in here. My question is, when we go back to this boat, who are all these people, right? The people in the water. As you can see over here on the sand, like I said, bunch of teenagers, not just Nolan. So it's not just Nolan, the Katie girl, and the other 4 dudes that he was in the picture with. There's multiple kids over here. You mean to tell me nobody knows nothing? I don't know, Nikia. That's a good question. Who was filming? Exactly. Something is off. Something is off. Yeah, says, was he knocked out? That's a good question. I don't know. I recommend if you haven't seen it, go back and watch the Murdaugh documentary, so you can see, because that's what this reminded me of, when that boat, that they were on those little boats just like that, and that boat crashed and that girl died, and the friends, they all tried to cover it. Well, actually, Paul, tried to cover it up. She was missing for a while. And obviously, if you fall into the water, you're missing for a while. Chances are you're probably not alive. Go back, and if you haven't seen it, watch it. Watch the Murdaugh murders so you can see what I'm talking about. Question everything. Because sometimes there have been situations, and these true stories, true crime stories, there have been situations where teenagers been hanging out, just having a good time, and then fight or something happens, and then somebody falls or someone hits their head or blah blah, and then it's just like, I don't know nothing about nothing, and people just try to let it go or cover it up. Question everything. We need to find out what happened to this kid. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Eric, can we go to part 3 for Type VNC? Thank you. All right, thank you for the super chat. Chip, Sabby, even their patron saint, George Washington, pulled himself up from the oot straps. OG George Washington. No, Rob says the problem is Mississippi. Yes, I told you guys people go missing in Mississippi a lot. Like, that's like a thing. Like, thank you, Grant. I'm in half an hour late, so I apologize. But with Tyler Robinson footage in the stairwell, what's going on with the stairs? Why does the foot doing the walking go up like that on the second flight? Grant, we got a lot of questions, don't we? No, Rab says somebody needs to snitch. John Doe says, I'm getting the Hills Have Eyes vibe from all of this. Thank you, Kevin. Bad news from Venezuela by McLeod. Open my eyes. Privileged elitist talking heads have daddy and mommy pay rent for them to live in NYC till hired. Interesting. Three Palms said one of them did it. Skip says cell phone on boat while he is swimming. Could be possible. But why would he stay behind without his phone? And thank you for this one, Skip. We see him on land, not in a fight in video. Doesn't rule out jealousy with white boys and black boy. Those were his friends. Thank you for sale. Sounds like they lynched him on the way back so nobody could see. I don't know, man. We're gonna find out what happened to him. All right. And I think we are ready to get started on this one. And then Nick and Mel are going to join. Okay. All right, ladies and gents, do me a solid and smash that like button. Thank you. Let's go ahead and get into this Graham Platner story. And then Nick and Mel will be joining us to weigh in on this as well. Graham Platner, I told you guys before, he gave me John Fetterman vibes. I only talked about him once on the show. And what I meant by that was that there were a number of red flags. Now, this is before the New York Times article. There were just a number of red flags that I was like, this guy is starting to remind me of John Fetterman, where there were those red flags. And I felt like people wanted to ignore it, right? So just recently, there was another allegation against Graham Platner, this time an allegation of sexual assault. This is different from what was said in the New York Times article, which basically talked about him being a bad boyfriend, basically with women in the past. And one of the women that was quoting, a lot of that was a Republican, and people saw that that's probably like some political play there. But there was another woman that was also quoted in that New York Times article who went on to say that she had good memories of him, but also that there was some erratic behavior. That is the woman who has come forward now with serious allegations against Graham Platner of sexual assault. He is already come forward with his video. And this ain't good, bruh. This ain't good. Let's get into this.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built, the largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics, the hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins. So, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins. Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today. On June 9th, 154,058 Mainers, the most in primary history, voted to reject a broken politics beholden to Washington and the donor class. They voted for hope, for change, to take back our economy, to take back our power, and to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me, and I will not turn my back on you now. Every one of you deserves to see that vision come to fruition and see Susan Collins defeated. And we will use every tool at our disposal to do so. As Maine goes, so goes the nation. As always, thank you.
So to make a long story short there, when they make that type of video, like, he hasn't officially dropped out just yet, but he's going to. He's going to have to. Part of the reason is because Chuck Schumer, basically leader of the Democratic Party at this point in time, they've already said that the Democratic Party is not going to allow him to have funding going forward. So what that means is that he's not going to be able to continue to fundraise, at least not through the Democratic Party. That's a statement coming from Chuck Schumer. But that is the statement there from Graham Platner. And look, and we're going to get Mel and Nick's take on this as well, because I want to hear what they also have to say. But the problem that I have was before these allegations. The problem that I had was that it seemed like to me not enough people were bothered by the Nazi tattoo. Not enough people were bothered by the mercenary assignment. Not enough people were bothered by, him saying that he wanted to go kill people in Iraq, like he voluntarily signed up to go to war because he wanted to kill people. Like, those were red flags for me. Now, this is not to say that people can't change. People can. But it just reminded me of John Fetterman, when he also had a lot of red flags, when he was making it pretty clear he was pro-Israel, when he was, questioned multiple times about chasing down a black jogger and pointing a gun to his chest. And I sat there and I watched a number of left commentators just dismiss it. And I warned people, I was like, this guy is going to be bad news. And here we are now with John Fetterman, and he gets the 6 years in the Senate, and he kind of stuck with them for a while. He's showing his true colors, but he was showing some of those things before he even won, right? Now, I don't know if Graham Platner is guilty of this or not. There has not been a trial, right? So he's not on trial. There hasn't been an investigation. I don't know. I think what is happening, though, is because of all the other things that even happened before this, it's starting to add up. So he is responding to this Politico article that just came out. Woman who dated Graham Platner says he sexually assaulted her. Yeah, this is this is a big one. You're going to hear from her in just a second. Her name is Jenny Rasicot. She's 41 years old. They dated for a couple of years. One of the things that I want to get into here is that she said that he showed up to her house in 2021, deeply intoxicated, and forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She cut off contact with him after telling him the encounter was not consensual. He has denied these allegations. Now, one of the things that people are asking, why didn't she say this when she spoke to the New York Times? So when she spoke to the New York Times, which was just about a month ago, she described his behavior as reckless and unsettling, but says that she didn't go public with specific assault claim because she didn't want to be known as a rape victim. So when she gave that statement of reckless and unsettling, to me, that was kind of open for interpretation, so that you could take those words and try to figure out what that meant, like what type of behavior did that mean. But she didn't go into details at that point in time. People were questioning the timing of this. This comes out after he won the primary. People asked, why didn't she mention that in that New York Times article? And her response there is she didn't want to be known as the rape victim. At the same time, what is really weird about this is that the interview with CNN was prepped and just ready to go. The moment that this political article dropped, bam, that interview with her was just prepped and ready to go. And so people are like, the timing of it is strange. Again, we don't know if I don't know what Graham Platner, if he did this or not. But this campaign is done. Like that's it. We'll get into all the people who are rescinding their endorsements at this point in time. It's done. It's over. So that's the article that really dropped the bombshell. Another thing that happened right before this was that it was reported that he was canceling a number of upcoming events. When that happens, that's never a good sign. If that happens, it could be that a candidate is running out of money and they're about to drop out, or it could be that some information is about to be released and they're probably still going to drop out. All right. So that's not a good sign there. I want you to see what she said here to Jake Tapper. And again, trigger warning to those. I'm trying not to play. I'm trying not to play some of the things that I know are going to be extremely disturbing. But to give you a gist of it, this is what she said to Jake Tapper here.
He was heavily intoxicated, had intentions with me, and wasn't listening when I said no. And
you were saying, no, don't, over and over.
I remember, obviously I've had to recall a lot of this. This is something that I tried for many years to forget. And so small details, might get past me. But yes, I remember very specifically saying, I'm not into this. I remember that the most, so saying that the most firmly. I remember specifically him grabbing at my chest, and I hit his hand and I said, don't touch me. And I remember that during the altercation.
And then he kept going.
Yeah.
I know that you have been very reluctant to tell this story. Very reluctant.
Yeah. I'm
actually surprised you're here.
Thrown up 3 times today.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why did you ultimately decide to do it? Why come forward?
A few reasons. One of the biggest ones is that I think that there are a lot of men in this world relying on the silence of women.
I noticed this too, New York Varsity, that he was leading, the way he was leading that conversation. I did notice that. Some people have called out Jake Tapper for the way that he handled this interview as well. There was another part here that I wanted to get into of that interview about the day after.
And when I came back out, he was asleep in my bed. And at that point, I didn't know what my options were. Obviously, I don't want this person in my house. And when I, earlier had realized how drunk he was, I knew that he had driven over that way. Like, I'm surprised he made it to my house. And if I woke him up and sent him home, like, I am now making the decision to put somebody that drunk on the road. And I didn't want to live with the fact that, like, if he got into an accident or hurt somebody else. And I remember thinking that I could tell him to leave, and I could call the police immediately, and I could at least get him caught for drunk driving. So I was like, I'm going to let him sleep, and the second he wakes up, I'm going to tell him to leave. And so he slept. I lay there in like a state of panic all night, and I remember turning on, I have like one of those noise machines that you sleep with, and I turn it on ocean waves, and I'm like, I'll just try to meditate. It didn't work. So in the morning, he woke up, and he went to go put his arm around me, and I was like, whoa. And realizing this person doesn't know that what happened wasn't okay. And so I remember taking his arm and throwing it back at him. And I said, are you fucking serious, Graham? And he's like, what? And I'm like, do you not remember what happened last night? He's like, no. And I'm like, okay, I need you to get dressed and leave and never talk to me again. Like,
so I have my opinion about this. Like I said, I'm gonna wait till Nick and Mel hop on, because Gen Z girl, she was trying to tell people sloppy hit job. Politico claims Jenny Rossicott told them Graham Platner sexually assaulted her, except in June 2026, she told the New York Times about the same night and said nothing about sexual assault. In fact, she said they had positive memories. So Gen X girl highlighted this here. And this is what she said. She had an on and off relationship with Mr. Platner and had positive memories. But she also said, see, this is where I talked about leaving it open for interpretation. She also said that he arrived at her house drunk after she asked him not to come over. She declined to elaborate, but said she cut off contact soon after that episode and found his behavior reckless and unsettling. And that just left it open for interpretation. So the part that I struggle with, and again, I'm not trying to, I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable at all. But the part that I'm really struggling with is she said she didn't want to be seen as like the rape victim. Understood. And that's why she didn't go into the details in the New York Times article. But she actually would have been, I would say, even better protected if she would have said it to the New York Times in an article versus an interview, an on-camera interview with Jake Tapper, because now everybody has seen her face. Like, does you guys get what I'm saying? Again, not trying to, not trying to hurt anyone's feelings or insult anyone here, trying to be respectful of especially anyone that has been through this. But to me, it's her face is on television. Everybody has seen her now. And to me, that's putting yourself out there. So I guess that's the part I don't understand. Now, other parts here that go on, or he said the same thing I was saying about that. This is something that I was actually surprised this came from Mika, but Mika is questioning, this is the journalist who wrote the Politico article. And what she's asking for is evidence, because people are asking about that. So listen to this.
What aspects of this story brought it to the level of publishable?
Yeah, you're correct here, Mika. There is no police report in this case. We spent a lot of time talking to Jenny, asking her for corroborating evidence. She shared that she had confided into a number of people, including her therapist, in almost real time. And we reviewed email exchanges between she and her therapist, referring to what she called this sexual assault, and her therapist sort of acknowledging that this had happened to her. We talked to people who she confided in the months after this happened. We asked her why she didn't file a police report, and she described sort of the insular nature of where she lives and her corner of Maine that she shares with Graham Platner. And she, debated sort of how to handle this. And we found ultimately the number of corroborating pieces of evidence to support her story in a way that we could report it.
So again, Mika's asking about the evidence. So people were asking about police report. There wasn't a police report. However, in the state of Maine, they have a statute of limitations for 20 years for this. So she could still file, if she wanted to, she could file a police report for this because that 20 years has not passed. But listen to this part.
What are some of those corroborating pieces of evidence? So you've got conversations with her therapist and people who she confided in. Any conversations with Graham Platner at the time of it where she said, because apparently as part of this story, she says she even confirmed to him that this was not consent. Do you have that? What do you have that actually connects this literally, Graham Platner to raping this victim?
Yeah, she reached out to him the day after via Instagram, and essentially, told him that she didn't want to hear from him again. She told him that morning as well, we looked at messages that she had sent to others in the months after this happened through social media.
But you were able to see those DMs?
She tried to recover those DMs. We did not. We were not able to review those DMs, but she described them to us. We also, long before he was a public.
Did you see the look on Misha's face? Look at the look on her face. So there were DMs. Jen said that there were DMs that were sent, but according to the journalists that reported the story, they don't have copy of those DMs. And if you look at the look of Jen's, and not saying that someone would still have those DMs from years later, but what I'm saying is if you look at the expression on Misha's face, what does that say to you? Or Mika, look at the expression on her face. She looks as though like, what is, I don't know.
He was a public, before he was a political candidate, we saw her essentially explain to others that he was, quote, in her words, consensually careless, end quote. But
were you able to see the interactions between Graham Platner and this alleged victim? Did you actually physically see them? Did she produce them for you?
She attempted to uncover them. She but was unable to.
That's a no. That's a no. And I don't know if Mika was told something prior to this interview that they had that information, because the look on her face made it seem like wait a minute, what is happening here? So I don't know what she was told before she did this interview, but no, they don't have it. That being said, though, when it comes a lot of times to social media, is anything actually deleted permanently or forever or whatever? Because I would imagine that Instagram, Facebook, X, I know X can do it. X has an actual report that you can get. You can do this yourself with your X account. They have all your stuff, even deleted tweets, all that stuff. And you can just pull that report, just hit that request button, and they will send you your entire history, your tweets, your DMs, all that stuff. So I would imagine Instagram might be able to do that as well. But the look on Mika's face made it seem as though she was told something that wasn't the case, that maybe they had that. She looked like she was surprised.
Willie?
So let's talk at this point.
So, Adam, in closing, obviously this is a huge political bombshell story, a story that probably will lead to the end of Graham Platner's campaign. And I'm going back to the decision to publish, and I'm curious what concrete evidence. You have conversations with therapists, conversation with friends, but what took this story beyond Graham Platner saying this was consensual, Jenny Rasco saying this was not consensual? What took it over the edge and had you and your editors decide to publish, of course, kind of an earthquake in Democratic politics? What was the piece of evidence or pieces of evidence that made you sure of this story?
Yeah, I mean, long before he was a political candidate, long before much of the country knew his name, Jenny, in her telling, had confided in a number of people. We saw screenshots that she shared of messages relaying this account to others. We viewed an email response from her therapist to her, acknowledging that they had talked about this.
Those are the things I said, but those are what is the actual? Is there evidence between her and him, evidence of a crime? Because he's being accused of rape.
I have never seen Mika do journalism. I'm surprised she went this far as she did. Yeah, Nas said he sounds nervous. He does sound a little bit nervous here. I'm going to get to the part about the therapist in just a second, but let her finish here.
So what put this over the edge? Because he says he didn't, and he has people on his side who say he didn't. She says he did, and there are people, but none. What's the through line? What ties this together and gives you the evidence to bring this story to the point of publishable?
Yeah, we interviewed her, 3 separate times. Her story stayed consistent across those times. We talked to people who she had spoken with contemporaneously about these attacks, and all of those stories lined up and checked out. And ultimately, Politico stands by our reporting, and we talked to, people who corroborated her story largely.
I don't know, you guys. I don't know. So what he's going off of there is that she did talk to friends about this. This is prior to Graham Platner's run, before he decided to run for office. And he said that they saw screenshots of those conversations, I guess, that she had with friends, talking to them about it. And then there's the therapist. Now, the therapist is interesting because in the Political article, it was saying that the therapist, they reached out to the therapist and there was no comment. Now, a therapist is not really supposed to share the information that you have with them unless you give them permission to do so, or the information that you shared with them is going to be a threat or a danger to yourself or someone else, right? Like if you went to your therapist and said you were going to kill somebody, the therapist has to report that, right? So this is, Mika does not sound sure. And that really stood out to me. I found that interesting. And let me get to this part here. People were pulling back, right? So here we go. Maine Democrats, they said no, they don't support. Over the past several weeks, multiple women have made serious, credible allegations against Graham Platner. Today's statements take those allegations even further. Maine Democratic Party leadership is calling on Graham Platner to withdraw as the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate. Here's another one. Platner's volunteer Discord server is calling for him to drop out. Now, these are the volunteers. I don't necessarily want Graham to win. I want his political ideas to win. He is not coming back from this, and we should find someone to carry on the ideals now. There's more. If this is all true, I'm obviously the most heartbroken for this poor woman who lived through something no woman should ever have to endure. But I'm also heartbroken for all the volunteers who believed in Graham. You guys get the picture here. Man, I'm in so much pain. Graham had great policies. And I'll tell you guys this as well. I reached out to a former coworker of mine who moved to Maine, and she was telling me that people just feel demoralized, just crushed after all of this. People who supported, and it's not even just about supporting him, but people who supported his policies, they feel crushed. It's like a blow, she said. So, you know, it's just like, even if, you know, those who believe it or don't believe it, the reality is his race is done. He's not going to continue to go on. And that's the reality. Now, some people have issued apologies. Emma Vigilant was obviously not happy about this. I want to show you guys what she said. And she did, someone sent it to me earlier. She did issue an apology earlier today as well for her role in all of this. So listen to this.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to jump on here to address the serious, credible allegations against Graham Platner. This story is devastating. I believe the victim here. I think that Graham should drop out of the race. He has betrayed many, many supporters by not being forthright about this. I would include myself in that. I believed his campaign when they said that there was nothing new coming out, and it looks like an awful, awful accusation, and a credible one has come out. Now, this movement has never been about one individual. Any candidate that takes up the mantle here should share Graham's belief or the campaign's belief in ending complicity in the genocide in Gaza, Medicare for all, taxing billionaires, and more. But obviously, this is a devastating development, and we'll be talking about it more on the Majority Report tomorrow.
All right. And I think Nick Cruz is here. Let's go ahead and bring Nick in, and Mel will be here in a couple of minutes. All right, Nick, welcome.
Hey, what's poppin'? My sister Sabby, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing. This is a crazy time, a crazy time. Oh my God. Okay, Nick, I want to get your take on this whole Graham Platner situation. People are really bummed. I've been hearing it all day. They feel like they got their hopes up for nothing. They feel like this was a waste of time. I want to get your take on these latest allegations here.
For starters, I always implore people, please do not ever fall for nihilism in this moment. I know there's a lot going on, but a big focus of mine and RBN now is helping raise funds for Gaza. So I really suggest people keep their eyes on the ball and let's form our own movements. Let's provide for the Palestinian people. Let's not give in to despair, because there's a lot to do. This is what electoral politics lead to a lot of people. It lead to a nihilism. Now there are a lot of people feeling defeated because an Abu Ghraib prison guard was revealed not to be a trustworthy person. Like, do you guys realize what they did at Abu Ghraib? This is why I want to start.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like the Israelis. You know, everything that we criticize the Israelis for doing, that's why there are a lot of cope when people claim that the Israelis corrupted the United States. No, look, where you guys think Israelis learned their actions from? Who do you guys think they studied? They studied the Abu Ghraib prison guards that engaged in sexual torture of their prisoners. There were stories of how, I don't mean to get graphic, but I really have no choice. I apologize, Sabby. But Abu Ghraib, they used blunt objects and inserted them. They raped these people. They tortured, they waterboarded these people. And they want us to believe that Graham Platner, who's a prison guard for Abu Ghraib, didn't see what was happening, didn't know what was happening. This is his character. This is the character of the United States and their military. And that's why
I got to tell you, Nick, some people told me they just found out today about his connection to the mercenary?
I explain all the time, there's a burning media industrial complex. They all like ran by fight agency. There's a lot of NGOs that have dark money who propping up media people to convince people to support their candidates uncritically. Like whenever I bring up like how like Zoran banned Palestinian protests at synagogues, one of the most grotesque violations of free speech in modern history, and how he's facilitating Palestinian land sales in the West Bank as Israel's annexing the West Bank. You guys know how many Zoran supporters tell me they didn't know that? You guys know how many people tell me they didn't know about Graham Platner? There's a purposeful blind spot in the United States left about imperialism where they take the devil's bargain. And I'm considered a radical and extremist because I view the victims of the United States empire as human, for example. And I'm not willing to make the trade-off of supporting the crimes of the empire for welfare programs. So Graham Platner never apologized for the crimes that he took part of, the crimes that inspired the Israelis, the mass rape. How you doing, Mel? It's great to see you on here.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of discussion about whether Graham Platner did it or not, and that's mostly irrelevant. There's a depravity in the Epstein regime and the Epstein class. You guys see how they have a congressional slush fund? Millions of dollars they use to settle sexual assault claims of people in Congress.
Oh.
So it's not about whether you acknowledge or believe that Graham Platner did this. It's the culture of the United States ruling class that is toxic and deplorable, and we rejected that. So the question I have for a lot of Graham Platner supporters, if we have one of these IDF people, because there are a lot, you guys know there's 20,000 Americans who are fighting for the IDF right now, helping Israel commit genocide. What if one of these IDF members come back home and they run on a Medicare for All platform? What if they say, oh man, I feel so bad about all the Palestinians I helped murdered, so I want to limit Israeli military support, and I support Medicare for All. Will you guys support them, despite the fact that they was IDF criminals? These are moral questions that we've been asking, and I'll pass to you, Sabby, but this is why I view it very plausible that he's a suspect guy because of his past associations in his position. But I'll pass to Sabby. I would love to hear from Mel.
So my big thing was, and I said it, he gave me John Fetterman vibes. I was getting it from the beginning, and I was like, guys, there's some red flags here. I think what Nick is saying is that the red flags were before that New York Times article. And I think that part's important. I want to bring you in, Mel. What's your take on this with these allegations? I know you were saying on X that you feel you're like, it's go off, Mel, go off.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I can totally see where Nick's coming from, and I think that those are really legitimate criticisms. If you're coming at him from you worked for Blackwater, what have you ever atoned for anything that you've done? You know, I also think that it's important to, when people are coming from like a military background and whatnot, I do, whether you think it's fair or not, I do think it is that their criticism of our association with Israel just carries more weight with a lot of people, right? They can say, I've been over there. I know these guys suck. We don't get anything out of our relationship with them. Not only do we not get anything out of it, it actually makes everything worse, right? So if, a lot of people want to approach from just a humanitarian standpoint. I get that. Like that's first and foremost with my heart, but it doesn't appeal to everyone. And I do think that there is a space for people who can speak with authority from a military standpoint. This doesn't even serve our interests. Like, even if you're like, oh yeah, we can align with the devil if it serves our interests. Well, guess what? We're aligned with the devil and it doesn't serve our interests. It actually hurts us at all times. So, I think that there is a space for people who, recognize that they were aligned with evil and who can say like, hey, actually, I'm going to come at it from this standpoint. That said, I thought he did give some compelling arguments. He really spoke to talking about the genocide, talking about I don't want my country aligned with this. I think it's evil in a really empathetic way, a very convincing way. It was it was actually really refreshing to see, because, you know, like I like Thomas Massey, but that's not the angle he comes at it from, right? His is always like libertarian, you know, kind of, you know, like, looking at the debt clock kind of thing, right? So it was just really refreshing to see this man talk about these things in a very much like, this is evil and we should definitely not be associated with that. That said, I get it that there are people who are like, no, you were with Blackwater. I haven't heard you say anything, you know, that convinces me that you actually think that you were aligned, you know, or you were like working for this really evil company. So whatever. That said, Blackwater wasn't ever the problem, right? Like, that's not the problem here. The Democratic Party isn't dissing him because he was ever associated with Blackwater. They love those guys. What we're seeing now are these very, in my opinion, very suspicious allegations from women who, you know, first we have this woman who is this Republican woman that I guess he was dating, Lindsay something, right? And, you know, this woman's best friend is Bethany Mandel, okay?
Yep.
If you don't know who Bethany Mandel is, I don't know. I actually I'm like, hold up. You were dating Bethany Mandel's best friend? Like, that's a bigger red flag to me than anything that woman said, right? Because Mandel is insane. Like, she's insane. And so this is the woman who, just so I don't know if your audience knows, but this is the one who last year her kid was at like Zionist summer camp, and there were some paragliders that went by, and they called the cops and were like freaking out. They almost had like an evacuation because some people in upstate New York, I think it was, were just like out having a, you know, weekend paragliding thing, and she's insane. But so yeah, that's the kind of woman that he was dating to begin with. And she had some really weird, I can't even remember what her allegations were, but it was basically like he didn't say the things I wanted him to say when I wanted him to say it, kind of thing.
He was a bad boyfriend.
He was a bad boyfriend. There you go. So, okay, whatever. I don't know. I literally don't care. Right. And then we had these things where there's some inappropriate text messages that get leaked to this woman who he had hired. And then she leaks them, which again, we start to see this thing where you have some crazy women around you. This is what I'm starting to pick up on. And I was talking with someone earlier about this, that when I talk to men or women, because you talk to a lot of women that like, they've got like 6 or 7 crazy ex-boyfriends. And it's like, well, there's a common denominator here. I don't know. Men too. You have all kinds of crazy women around you. That's usually kind of a red flag to me. Like attracts like. So I think that's a healthy criticism. Regardless, none of this came out until he's about to win. And now what we're seeing, and this is very, very establishment politics right here, is that the nuclear bomb that got dropped with this, right? It happened after the primary, but just before the cutoff date where the party gets to decide. Voters be damned, right? The party now gets to pick who they want.
Yep.
And I think that timing right there, really, number one, should tell you everything. And then number two, and just so people know, I was paralegal for a criminal defense attorney. I'm very, very, very defense minded. I do not trust law enforcement. I am very much a you are 100% innocent until proven guilty kind of person, and I have very, very strict kind of like settings or rules or whatever you want to call. I hold allegations like this to a very high standard. Like, sorry, you do have to come up to me with a little more than just, I don't know. This thing happened to me 5 years ago.
Let me just jump in here for a second, because they already got somebody ready to your point. People were saying this guy who apparently just filed papers, Troy Jackson, they're trying to get him to run. They said he believes in the same policies as Graham Platner does. And they already got a poll out. See how fast they already got a poll that shows that he also is still beating Susan Collins. Of course, it shows Graham Platner is not now, after these allegations. So it seems like there's this push to kind of go with him. I do want to get the perspective of everybody backing out as quickly as they did. It almost seemed like this was a coordinated effort yesterday. Like none of us on that, like I didn't endorse Graham Platt. I haven't endorsed anybody this year. Nick didn't endorse Graham Platner, but Crystal came in and said he should drop out. Like it was just one after another. And it was like they all got together in one big DM group and said he should, it was just one tweet after another. I found that to be kind of like, well, that was fast, but it just, Nick, I want to get your take on this, how quickly people were out. But it's like, I guess for me, it's like none of the other things were a red line.
Yeah.
Like none of the other stuff.
You see people deleting their tweets. Hassan is lying about ever supporting them. DSA is lying about supporting them. It just the same.
Well, DSA didn't endorse him.
They put out.
That might have. I think that was main DSA, but he never got an endorsement from National DSA. They never. The thing about Graham Platner that more people are admitting now, he was never vetted. They never vetted him. And I think that's why they never gave him an endorsement. But he kind of came out of nowhere. And you guys know what I told you about the people that come out of nowhere. I get they make me nervous. I'm like, you come out of nowhere and you just take off. But go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. A lot of these people are being propped up by Fight Agency. I explained this on my channel many times before, how there's a lot of these dark money groups and PACs. A lot of the money is being fundraised by Soros and a lot of liberal Zionists that are fundraising these candidates who serve as a very important pressure release valve in this moment when there are a lot of people who was ready to quit the two-party duopoly after the genocide. That's why I've been very upset and I've been in shambles, because the only third-party movement we are seeing is coming from the right. It's coming from Tucker, and a lot of them was organizing the third party. So I always say this up front, and I've been mentioning this on my channel, how I view the rise of these liberal Zionist sheepdogs and the revival of the Democratic Party as our failure, to provide an alternative. Because I made a lot of scathing critiques on Zohran Mamdani and Graham Platner, but I also acknowledge that many people gravitate towards them because there's no better option. Like Mel mentioned earlier before, how Graham Platner is speaking about the crimes of Israel, and there's this very unique revolutionary opportunity that is facing us. Unfortunately, the ruling class also understands this, and they have adjusted, and now they're saying free Palestine while also having candidates who support imperialist narratives in other places, and they undermine the overall pro-Palestine and resistance movement. And this is one thing I've been extremely critical of Graham Platner and many DSA left, because the people who vetted Graham was part of a group called Progressive Voice, and Progressive Voice works with Track Ukraine and a lot of dark money donors in order to pressure progressive candidates into supporting the NATO proxy war in Ukraine. And this is when your geopolitics start becoming extremely inconsistent, because by supporting NATO and supporting the militarization of Europe, you are undermining the Palestinian cause. Because it was revealed by Mark Rutte that NATO helped facilitate Donald Trump's bombing on Iran. NATO countries helped funded and facilitated the genocide against the Palestinians. NATO weapons and EU weapons are currently being sent to the UAE, that is also being sent to the RSF, that is also responsible for mass genocide of the Sudanese people, which none of them ever talk about the genocide in Sudan, which is a NATO project. So you guys understand, you can say free Palestine all you want, but if you have a geopolitics like Zohran Mamdani, who condemns Venezuela, he condemns Cuba in the light of Donald Trump's imperialist aggression against the state. He condemned Nicolas Maduro, who always stood with Palestine in order to replace them with a Zionist ruling class led by Maria Corina Machado. So these are basic geopolitics that many people in the progressive left, they do not understand. So yes, I'm glad that Graham Platner and them are reaching people by being critical of Israel. But to be frank, they are dumbing down the conversation. They are dumbing down what it actually means to impose the empire, because supporting NATO aggression, supporting the United States narrative against states who are friendly of Palestine and creating this and supporting the imperial empire like Grant Platner did in NATO. So you can have criticism over his Nazi tattoo or whatever, but the biggest indictment of him is his support of Nazis in Ukraine. Zelensky often brags about how he provided material support for Iran, how he's willing to help Israel slaughter Palestinians. So that's why I look at these people very side-eyed when they say they're pro-Palestine. It seems like, to me, and this is my perspective, that they're using the Palestinian struggle as a way to advance their career, while also dumbing down the movement and dragging people to the right. But that's just my thought. I would love to hear what you guys think.
Well, I'll say this. I think that a big part of it is this is something I noticed when I talk to people on the ground. The number one issue for a lot of people is economy. Gaza is also up there too, but for a lot of Americans, they're not paying. To your point, Nick, outside of Gaza, well, and now Iran, they're not really paying attention to a lot of more geopolitics. They're paying attention to the price of gas, the price of groceries, domestic issues, number one on their mind, because that's what's hitting their wallet. And so when you don't have, this is where Shama Sawant comes in. And I kind of look at it like this, and I'll pass it to you, Mel. I just talked to Shama yesterday. I feel like a lot of the defense that came in for Graham Platner, I feel like that energy could have been used towards like Shama's campaign, someone who is in a city that has a jungle primary, so she's not shut out, someone who's in a blue city that has no chance of going to a Republican, who it's only, if you're the first two, then that's you. It will be her against Adam Smith. I don't understand. Why not put that energy and time and invest that into an independent campaign like Shama Sawant, who, if we're going to get an independent in Congress, she's probably our best shot because of the way the system is set up in Seattle. Really? And it was kind of troubling to me yesterday to hear from her that they won't bring her on. They won't even let her come on to talk about her campaign. Shama Sawant is running against a Zionist AIPAC shill in Seattle who has been in Congress for over 20 years, almost 30 years now at this point in time. And they will not entertain it. And I look at all this time that was spent on propping up and defending Graham Platner. This is going all the way back to the Nazi tattoo. I'm just keeping it real. And none of that energy was even thrown a little bit at Shama Sawant's way. And I'm like, if you're serious about fighting back against the pro-Israel lobby, why would you ignore that campaign when you know there's no threat of a Republican getting that seat? So that's kind of weird to me. But I want to go to you, Mel, here. I know you were saying that with these allegations that this all seems like a setup. Do you feel that other people feel that way? Because a lot of what I'm seeing, I was surprised at how many people aren't even saying that part. Do you get what I'm saying? That two things could be true at the same time. Like, I feel like people are just like, I don't understand. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's so for me, kind of, being on the outside, being obviously on the right, this has kind of just been this race that's just been in the periphery for me. I don't like Susan Collins. Obviously, for so many reasons, she's just awful. But I'm not like, it's not like Graham Platner doesn't really appeal to me anyways. I don't know. It's funny. I was talking to my mom tonight, who's very conservative. She's asking me what I thought about this. And I said, well, I think it's a setup. And she's like, that's exactly what I said. And I was very surprised to hear her say that, because she's like, now don't get me wrong, I think he's a weirdo. But so it's like, okay, I just look at this strictly from separating all the things, very much a political hit job, right? And that's very troublesome to me, that this is going to happen like this, the way that it's going to happen, because it sets a precedent, right? And it will be used against other people that we actually do like, right? This kind of sleazy politics where it's very clear once you establish the timeline, once you see what happened and why this is being said and why they kind of trickled these allegations out the way they do. And also the allegations themselves are very, again, I worked for a criminal defense attorney. Almost all of our clients were indigent. And when we lower the standard of evidence, the burden of proof on allegations, that is levied against the poorest people in our society, right? People who are very, very often wrongly accused, or they are, grossly overcharged. And these things are used against them to rob them of their freedom. So I have a very high standard, and no, Graham Platner will be fine, right? He's not going to jail. There's not going to be any jail sentence for him, right? But when you put it in people's minds that, like, just because this chick said that 5 years ago he came over to her house and he wasn't, I forget the word that the wording she said, something about he was, something about he was very flippant with his consensuality, or with consent. She had a very
reckless and unsettling.
Yes, and no, she is She is the very particular that I just thought was a real kind of a weird play with the wording. I was like, that's a little bit. She said he was consensually careless at times.
There you go.
And so, well, that's not rape, right? Like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what you're saying here. I need you to be forthright with me. You know what consent is, and you know what it's not. And I don't like these real gray areas where they can be used against people and not. Like, that's me. I'm sorry. I'm a very straightforward person. And again, when I see that your girlfriend texted you and said, hey, should I hook this guy up with my friend? If a dude raped me, and I said this earlier, if a dude raped me, and then my girlfriend texted me and said, hey, should I hook my friend? I would say, hell no. Stay away from him. That's the test right there. This is a private DM between girlfriends. Like, you should absolutely warn other women about these things. And I think it's fair to expect like a bare minimum of that. And she didn't do that. So this is weird to me that this woman is coming out now, 5 years later and saying this. So I don't like it. And I don't like the precedent that it's going to set, because it absolutely will be used against, whether it's poor people going through state or, local court systems, or whether it's, politicians who one day, are good and that we like them. So,
well, why do you feel that most people did not, when Thomas Massie was running, why do you feel that most people did not believe that compared to now?
Well, so Thomas Massie has a certain, I genuinely do believe that it comes down to kind of character, right? So he comes off as a dork, right? And he's kind of nerdy. And then, and nobody can see him as that guy, right? And I don't know if that's fair or not, but it's true, right? He's this nerd that went to MIT, And
I'm sorry, Mel. One thing I want to add to your point, because you're making a lot of good points, is especially in this modern society, I think there needed to be a cultural revolution, especially in the light of what was revealed in the Epstein files. I don't know if the allegations against Graham Platner are true or not, but as I mentioned before, they have a congressional slush fund full of these creeps, and that's what I want to focus on. That, because who knows? Because you know how politics is. It's very dirty. But we need, as men, I guess I'm talking to my men here, we need to adjust. We need to be careful. We need to reject the decadence of the Epstein class. I don't like the fact that women in America aren't comfortable walking around at night. They walk around at night in China. I mean, they walk at night in Moscow. There are a lot of countries where women feel safe. We ourselves, like, don't get women drunk and have sex with them. You know what I mean? I don't do it. I'm not a drinker anyway. Like, you guys see how we gotta change the culture? Yeah, Graham Platner got destroyed by the establishment because they can do this to anyone on their roster. You know what I mean? Because it's the culture, whether many Americans don't want to admit it or not, that is very rapey. and that's why a lot of people lead themselves in this. That's why it's very sad that Mel and other women even have to discuss how they will handle this kind of situation, because unfortunately we have a culture that is spurred by the ruling class, where men do a lot of creepy shit. There's Harvey Weinstein, protected by Hollywood. Epstein, they wouldn't know what he did. I'm just saying, I'm focusing a lot on the culture. I'm sorry to interrupt you, man. I'll let you finish. I think it's very important for us to change our culture. I think men, like, if you think that Graham Platner is being done dirty, okay, change what you can handle in your life. Don't creep on women. We need to have such an extreme reaction to what was revealed in the Epstein files over the decadence, and we need to completely culturally reject that. Don't even put yourself in a position where allegations like this can come out. But sorry, I'll let you guys finish your thought. I just had that.
You know, Nick, that's a very conservative talking point, right? they gonna accuse you, right? But no, that's one of those things, right? That your mom always says, don't do anything you wouldn't want to see on the front page of the newspaper, right? That's kind of one of those things, right? That you actually have to do. You should be expected, and if you want to be in public service, you should lead a life that you don't have to worry about these things. But here's the thing: people do make mistakes. They do. They have bad chapters in their life. I strongly suggest you deal with those chapters. Right? You get everything out, right? And you also have a really honest assessment with yourself about the things that you did and how that's going to play. And I don't know if he did that or not. Somebody suggested to me, I was having a conversation earlier. They said they think he's a plant, that he was always a plant. Again,
I heard that too.
Yeah, and I thought about it a little bit more. And I've done a lot of reporting, of research on, I don't know if you guys have ever talked about the ghost donors, the smurfing that goes on, and how they bring in, they use bot programs to run these small dollar donations, and they use the names and addresses of real Americans. They have no idea. It's always old people. And they make these tiny donations in their names so that they don't get flagged in the system. And they use them to prop up candidates, right? And to make it look like they have popular support. Some candidates really do have popular support, right? And then others don't. And it's very hard to tell. There's a guy named Peter Bernegger. He has had he runs electioninfo.org, I believe, electionwatch.org. And it's a great website that explains the whole system. He has filed, I think, something like 15 lawsuits with the FEC. Right now, the FEC has 2 commissioners. It's supposed to have 6. And I genuinely believe that Trump actually hasn't appointed anyone, and that people won't accept it because of Peter Bernegger's lawsuits. Because this is a thing. It's been happening since 2018. My name is Village Crazy Lady on X. If you go to my page, if you look at my highlights, I have tons of threads written about this, so I can explain it all to you. You can see it in action, but it's on the left and the right. It's both of them. It's unbelievable. But Peter has filed all of these lawsuits, and the FEC is basically like, well, we can't investigate the things that he says because we don't have enough commissioners. And so I now putting that in my head, I want to go through, I want to look at Graham Platner's donations. I want to see, was he propped up? Is he a real plant?
I was gonna mention this because someone sent me the article yesterday. He did get donations from, he didn't take like super PAC money, but he did get donations from billionaires, from multiple billionaires, including the CEO of Walmart, the Walton family, including them. But see, that again, that came out recently. Like, it's all this stuff, a lot of this was coming out recently, except for, of course, his past. I don't understand why this guy, I don't understand why he ran for office. It's like, you had to have known that these things that you did in your past was going to come out. And then another part is, I feel sorry for his wife, because she made that video, explaining, yeah, we had problems at the beginning of the marriage. He was, sexting, we worked through it. And now there's this. And it's like, so I don't know. We're going to wrap here in about 2 minutes. Nick, I want to give you final word, and then Eric's going to come on.
Yeah. Once again, as I mentioned this before, and I will keep mentioning it, I think it's upon us to actually start building something. I want the legacy of our generation to be building a movement that brings humanity into the future. How can people see what they're building in China, the quality of life improvements in China, and not want to build the same thing? This is why I personally advocate against entryism and for us building our own movements so we can advance the working class to the next stage and actually challenge the Zionist duopoly. That's why I support our third-party movements, and I think it's very important for us to support mutual aid. And in this time, please go to Gaza Funds. This is a site where they have a lot of different fundraisers who are vetted. We need to support the people who are victims of the United States empire, the people who really need help. So that's what we've been focusing on. We sell T-shirts where I make no money off of it. All the proceeds go towards Gaza Fund. So if you want to get a shirt, you can go through RBN merch. But if you don't need a shirt, also donate to Gaza Funds, because I think that should be a gigantic focus of ours right now. Not only just organizing for the Palestinians, but showing up for Americans who need it. We need to show the working class that we have their best interests at heart, because we really do. Thank you for having me on, Sabby, once again. You guys can find me on Nick Cruz. I also post geopolitics shorts. I've been focusing a lot on my short form content recently on Hotspot, my friend Nico House and David today, and we cover geopolitics from an anti-imperialist perspective on there, usually short for the Zoomer crowd. So you guys can follow me out there. It's great to be in conversation with you again, Sabby, and it's great chatting with you as Mel. You guys do great work. Keep it up.
All right.
Bye, Nick.
Mel, tell people where to find you too.
Yeah, you can find me on X, Village Crazy Lady. There's no A because there's a character limit. And I have a Substack. On there I do like more long form. I've got a series going on right now about Christian Zionists and really tracking the New Apostolic Reformation movement and how that has really taken over our American politics. So you can find me on Substack, and it's called Thoughts from the VCL, Village Crazy Lady. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, Mel.
Bye.
Bye. All right, ladies and gents, we are going to do call in. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'll come back and we'll head on over to call in.
All right.
I'm sure I want to hear you guys' opinions about this, because I know it's like I said, a lot of people are divided over this. So yeah, I want to hear what people have to say. All right, I'll be back in a sec.
Work on that. All right. So this is the part of the show where we'll be transitioning over to Call-In, which used to be an app, but now it's they killed the app, so we do it on Zoom now. But that's where we get to hear from you all. You can tell us what you think about any of the stories tonight or anything else. We have good conversations there. Sabby's actually creating the Zoom room now, and then we'll be giving you the link when that's created and available. The whole Graham Platner thing. I mean, I really think we can really simplify this down to, you really just can't go with anyone in the uniparty. The way I like to put it, no member of the uniparty is your friend. It really is that stark and simple. I think we need to have a form of political militancy that really starts with that. But the real way to do this is to focus on demands and not people. That's what I always, like to put it to, and around these parts, I think a lot of us like to put it to. If we're talking about a movement based on a clear set of demands, then there's really, it doesn't get into this stuff with personalities and people. And the uniparty, whether it's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, is essentially excluded once you start putting them up to, those kind of basic demands. And we need to stay away from the kind of fights that the corporate duopoly and the corporate oligarchy want us to have. They want us to be doing these things of, the Democrat, the Republican, this Democrat's better than that Democrat or whatnot. It's not happening through the uniparty. So that's step one. And, step two is having those clear demands. And you might say, well, what do those demands look like? And it's like, and I would say, thank you for asking. But you can look at, you can see that kind of thing out on 11demands.org, where it's about, it's about having clear demands. It's about sparking that mass movement based on clear demands, with the strong focus on corruption. And if you have that, I think that really gets you into something real. It keeps you away from the nonsense like a Graham Platner, and it's up to us, I guess, is what it really comes down to. Yes, we need to be criticizing what's out there and pointing it out and educating people, but then we also need to be talking about, look in the mirror, right? What am I doing? What are all of us doing? It's about educating ourselves, our neighbors, and working on ways to organize around those clear demands and focusing on that corruption. And it's about up versus down, billionaires versus the rest of us. If we put it in those frameworks, I think we do well. Speaking of 11demands.org, there is a new feature here on the website that's called the Demandomizer. And so the way the Demandomizer works is it's a wheel. It has basically all kinds of articles from the 11 Demands Substack, and also pages to a few of the pages on the website. So if you want to just have a random look at what's happening with 11 Demands, you can go onto the 11 Demands website, 11demands.org, and spin the wheel. Let's try a spin. And it'll put up a random article. I don't know which one it's going to show. Here we go. The problem with Zoran Mandami. And if you hit the read article, then it'll take you to the Substack article. This one was kind of an early one on Zoran and kind of going over the pluses and the minuses, but really coming down to, we need candidates that are focused on those clear sets of demands. And Zoran is a whole nother, could be a whole discussion, but you can do that here. I'll give you a pro tip. Now, if you spin the wheel on the right side, it spins hard and does a lot of spins. If you spin it on the left side, it does a short spin, and we'll do a short spin. I just throw up one more here. All right, an MCDS playbook for candidates. And if you don't like that one, you can do a respin. We'll do one last one here. What do we got? Oh, an MCDS state of mind. Oh, that's a good one. All right, so that's about the idea of the 11 Demands Collective, state of mind, understanding the deep corruption in our politics, in our government, calling it out, and organizing around that clear set of demands. So that's a new toy on 11demands.org. So check it out, give it some spins, and maybe have a little fun with it. Meanwhile, let's see here. We got a few. There we are. We got a few super chats, I think, in the queue. Yeah, let's see what we got here. Thanks for this one. Skip, who says, "Is this the normal political hit job? Sab, you pro-right?" He's saying she's pro-right. All right. Well, I'm not even sure what that one is, but we're pro 99% around here is, I think, what you can say with confidence. And shout out to Isang for being a member for 38 months. That's a good long run membership. We like our members. And they use their special longtime member super chat to say, the DNC don't want Platner because of his stance on war. Yeah, I mean, and so then I would ask, why does Platner or other supposedly progressive candidates want the DNC, want to be dealing with that in that party? They can exit the uniparty and then start talking to us about what they're really going to do for us. Thanks for the super chat from Focus, who says, nice to see Nick on the show. I agree. It was a good conversation with Nick and Mel and diving into those things. Let me just check. I don't think there's anything out here on the Rumbles. And, well, if I got another second here, let's, what we're going to do. We're going to give the wheel another spin. Here we go. Let's see what it comes up with next here. This is the 11 Demands Demandomizer wheels. All right, you ready to give the wheel a spin? Here we go. Sabby's like, oh, what are we doing? Okay. All right. This one is the distraction game. We won't read the whole article, but here we go. That'd be funny. Like, now we got to read the whole article. But there you go. So that's the new 11 Demands toy at 11demands.org.
I love it, Eric. This is really cool. Of course you come up with this stuff. You're always coming up with stuff. All right, guys.
try.
Yes, definitely check out 11demands.org. Definitely look into that.
For fun stuff, good stuff, demand stuff.
Yeah, because like Eric and I say, like, we need to demand more. We deserve more. We deserve better.
That's where it starts.
And that's it. All right, ladies and gents. All right, we are going to head into the call-in segment. That link should be pinned at the very top of the live chat there. I'm going to go ahead and open the Zoom room. Come on over to call-in. If you've never been over, come over. It's a good time. It's a fun time. And we can say what we want because we're not on YouTube.
No
you can talk
YouTube
about
overlords.
Yeah, I see some people are already here. If you come in a little bit later, you can go to sabrinasalvati.com and that'll bring you
Or you can
over.
use it now.
Yeah, as well. Eric, once you get in, I'll go ahead and make you a co-host.
And
then when you get into the room, ladies and gents, if you want to talk at the very bottom of the Zoom room, there's an option to raise your hand. Just click on that little button there to raise your hand, and that lets me know that you want to speak. And so I'll know to call on you. And Eric, when you're here, if you raise your hand too, then I'll go ahead and make you a co-host.
Yeah, to make me put in the passcode. I'm trying to find it. Where'd it go?
Oh, it had you put in the passcode? Oh, let me put that up here too, I guess. Well, a lot of people already got in.
There it is. 722005. I know we don't want it to have a passcode, but sometimes it makes us do that.
Yeah, what did you say it was? 722?
722005. Get yours now.
That's the passcode, ladies and gents. If you need that, right there at the bottom of the screen.
Just trying to get my hand
but I see
raised.
some people
There we go.
are already there. Yeah. So, or you can just go to sabbysabs2.com and you'll get the passcode and everything there as well. All right, Eric, I'll make you a co-host.
I will see you all in there.
All right. All right, ladies and gents, that is it for us tonight. I'll be back again a Thursday evening. And after all that, you know how we do this. We're heading on over to call in. Have a good night and keep up the fight.